Well, this is just a quick disclaimer. The next video is a series of different clips that I compiled together to make one video, all talking about the same thing but made at different times. Also, I was extremely tired, y'all. I was tired when I made the video, and I did stammer over my words in certain portions of the video. This is not one of my better videos. You know, I like to put my videos together, and I like my videos to be concise, clear, and to the point. This is not one of those videos. It's not confusing. It's not all over the place, but it's not as clear as I would like it to be, but it's important documentation of ongoing things I've been dealing with the targeting, y'all, as it pertains to work, etc. So, just that disclaimer, y'all. Talk to you. Peace out. Y'all, the next video you're about to listen to is documentation of some gang stalking activity that took place at my job, at work yesterday, and when I left work yesterday morning. So y'all know that, well, if you've been keeping up with my videos, you know that I've been doing security, night shift security at the facility where I used to be a corrections officer, where I was trying to get my job back, right? So I've been doing security there for the last few months. By the way, y'all, this is a precursor video. Y'all know I like to do these in the beginning of some of these videos, specifically videos where I have multiple clips that I've glued together and put together in one. Y'all, I'm hearing noise campaign outside. So irritating. Compilation. What these clips that I put together and I make a compilation video. These are the videos specifically where I like to do precursor videos for clarity. So like I was saying, as you know, I've been doing security for the last few months at the facility where I used to be a corrections officer, where I was a corrections officer. Well, I was never a corrections officer. I never made it to that level or to that phase. I was a cadet in training to be a corrections officer. And then I lost a job under what felt like unfair circumstances, which you're going to hear me talk about in this video, y'all. But anyways, so if you've been keeping up with my videos, you know a few months ago, I was given the post as a security officer at that facility, and they've been hinting over the course of the last few months that I was going to get my job back as a corrections officer. So if you've been keeping up with my videos and you checked out the last video I posted and the last few videos, you'll have heard what happened about 2 weeks ago, where I got this call from the Department of Education and found out I might be teaching again. So that created some friction at the job, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in this next video. Something took place at work yesterday morning that was unfair, felt like gang stalking activity, and I believe it's retribution for that same thing, the thing with the Department of Education. So you're going to hear me talk about things in the next video, y'all. I'm going to talk about some of the experiences I had when I was a cadet in the facility, what felt like an unfair termination. You're going to hear about why I think I received some of the treatment that I did when I was a cadet in the facility. And then me just talking about the recent activity at the beginning of this year, what's been happening over the course of the last few months, you know, with them hinting I would get my job back. And then, you know, this, what I want to call a random surprise where I found out that I might actually be able to teach again and how it caused friction at the facility, and it seems like I've gotten retribution for it. It's just, I don't want to get in problems, but this is really what's happening. And so something took place at work yesterday that's directly correlated with that, and that's what you're going to hear in the next video, y'all. Anyway, I'm doing this precursor for clarity. Sorry if I sound winded. They're hitting me with the energy weapon right now, y'all. I made this video that you're about to listen to earlier, and I woke up, because I work the night shift often, almost every night I work except Saturday nights. That's why I'm up now, y'all. It's Saturday night / Sunday morning. And as soon as my body woke me up, you're going to see at the end of the video, I made a clip as soon as I woke up about them hitting me with the energy weapon. I'm going to attach it to the end of this video. Well, here I am now still putting the video together. That's why I'm making this precursor video. I've already made the video. I'm just gluing the clips together and, you know, adding this precursor video for clarity. And they're hitting me with the energy weapon. It's 4:25 a.m. and they're hitting me with the energy weapon. So that's why I sound winded, y'all. Anyway, so that's what to expect. That's what you're going to hear in the next few clips, y'all. That the video's basically about what feels like retribution, y'all, and gang stalking activity. All right, I'll talk to you in the next one, people. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sharifa, and my poetry name is New Lily. If you're new to my channel, please check out the links located in the description box and comment section. And in both locations, you'll find an identical set of links. Links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information about the targeted individual program. Information about the tactics used on targets, information about the technology used on targets, and information about the program in general, y'all. I am going through it, and I've been going through it for the last 6 years, y'all. I haven't committed a crime. I lived a relatively decent life, a straight-laced type of life. I stayed out of trouble. You know, it's almost like when you go through this and you haven't done anything wrong, it's almost like you feel like, why did I live such a careful life? Why was I such a good, especially if you were somebody that followed, like you were a law-abiding citizen? Like, I should have just lived a crazy, footloose life and had fun. With the level of punishment and then you see some people who have done way worse that are living comfortably, just like, I should have really just wilded out. You start to feel like, what the heck? Anyways, y'all, so you know the thing started in 2020, right? If you've checked out my stories, if you haven't, like I said, check out the links in the description box and comment section. The first few links are links that lead to videos where I talk about what started my targeting in 2020. And then the other links, like I said, share info about the program, the technology used, tactics, etc. But please listen to my story, y'all, and the ludicrousness of it all, y'all. It's just crazy. If you hear my story, y'all, and what I've been through and what I'm still going through 6 years later, it's insanity. It's crazy. That's not even, I feel like crazy is not a strong enough adjective to describe what's going on here. Anyway, y'all, so this is more documentation of targeted individual abuse. I'm trying to be careful, right? Because now they sent me a schedule and I say I have a full schedule again. So obviously, yes, I'm grateful. But, you know, I still dealt with what I dealt with this morning. And I do want to talk about it because it was ridiculous. So if you've been keeping up with my recent videos, y'all, I would say start all the way 4 months ago, 4 to 5 months ago, y'all, is where I would say to start if you want to be up to date with the recent developments in the targeting and the recent antagonization that I've been dealing with. I should say antagonizations. It's like multiple things at once that I'm being antagonized about. But this video here, y'all, from 5 months ago that says part 1, the sabotaging and gaslighting of the targeted individual. And you see me in like whatever in the thumbnail, in the blue, right? That is where the recent, I would say, development started. I've been going through stuff for years, y'all. It's always something when you're targeted. It's always something different that you're getting tortured for, and it's really not about anything other than whatever they threw you in the program for. It's usually some sort of like revenge thing. Maybe you pissed off the wrong person, and that's what you're in the program for. Anyway, nonetheless, y'all, 5 months ago, some things happened, multiple things at once. And I've been getting punished ruthlessly for the last 5 months because of it. It's been very unfair. If you keep up with the last few, with the videos, the recent videos, from this video all the way to now, you'll hear what's been going on, y'all. Please do check out my recent videos as well. That last video where I was talking about what's going on with my career and or job. And, you know, the things that, oh gosh, y'all, I can't speak. I'm having anxiety. Really, because of that video, what happened and what they've been doing recently, y'all. I'm having, you know, I make these videos and I run my mouth without even having to think about it. I'm just going through it, y'all. Anyway, so I told y'all, let me see what video that was. I don't remember which video that was where I talked about this. I think it was this video that says career from 2 weeks ago. The thumbnail says career and it says targeted individual reactive abuse, certifications and documentation and career update. So what happened was, as y'all know, for the last few months, I've been working as a security officer, night shift security officer at the facility where I was a corrections officer last year. Remember, y'all, I applied to become a corrections officer and it was this long, arduous process, and it took months for me to actually get into the job because of the targeting. Eventually I was able, it took a whole year, y'all. Eventually I was able to get into the facility, and then whatever happened in there, I've talked about it in prior videos. I'm not really trying to rehash things. Whatever happened in there happened in there. And I ended up getting, I guess you could say laid off, fired, whatever term you want to use. And so since then, I've been trying to fight to get my job back. This happened a year ago. I didn't think the situation was fair. It was due to targeting. I was receiving a certain treatment in there, and it led to a poor performance. So I went in there full of energy and ready to learn and ready to participate. And immediately that first week was like, I kept saying it felt like I was being hazed. Like when you're joining a sorority or a fraternity and you get hazed, and it's like a real bad hazing where you almost don't survive. Like, that's what it felt like. The whole first week was really bad. I remember they even had a lieutenant in there, and he was really mean. He was really mean. So it was a lot of mean, sensitizing things happening, and I was like, God damn, am I going to even make it in here? Like, I need the job, but God, it was like so bad, the treatment. And eventually things got a little bit better, but it was never good. The treatment was never good. So, y'all, it's unfortunately with that position, most positions you have to get trained for. It doesn't matter what type of position it is, whether it's a blue collar job or you're working a white collar job. It doesn't matter. There is some sort of training that has to take place. With this job, it's mainly a training based position. They have a whole period where you're a cadet before you can even become an officer, where you have to shadow other officers, and it's like months on end that you have to do it for until they decide to send you to police academy. And so typically that's not a big deal if you're living a normal life. But if you're living a targeted life and you're dealing with people that don't care for you, it's a horrible experience. So hold on a minute, y'all. I'll be back. Y'all, quick grammatical correction in the next clip. When I'm talking about the treatment that I got in the facility when I got in there as a corrections officer, I said I felt like they thought that I had some sort of feeling of superiority. And I said just based off of some of the comments that was made. I meant to say based off some of the comments that were made. I had to correct myself, y'all. Every time I listen back to the clip, it's annoying me hearing that grammatical error. All right, y'all. Also, y'all, another correction in the same upcoming clip. There's a part where I'm talking about what happened a year before I became a cadet. So around the time when I had started the process of becoming a cadet, I had already did the interview and the process had started for me to become a cadet and get into the facility. I made an error and I said around the time when I became a corrections officer. First of all, I never became a corrections officer. I was a cadet and then I lost the job. But also the timeline, the way I worded it is messed up. I was trying to talk about an interview that I had at the high school I used to teach at for 2 years before I tried to relocate off island in 2022. And this interview happened around the time when I was going through the process of becoming a cadet. So I hadn't even gotten in the facility yet as a cadet. I was still just going through the hiring process. And this was actually around the time when I had first started the process. Remember I told you all it took me a whole year to get into the facility due to targeting. So I made a mistake and I said around the time when I became a corrections officer, and then I proceed to tell y'all what happened with this interview that I had with the administrators at the high school I used to teach at 4 years ago. When the interview took place, it had been 2 years since I had taught. Not 2 years. It had been like a few months since I had taught because I had left. Like I said, I had tried to relocate off island summer of 2022 and I resigned from my teaching job. And I got back on island November of 2022. And this interview with that same school took place, I don't remember when, but the beginning of 2023. And around that time was when I was going through the process of becoming a cadet. So I had already filled out the application. I had already gotten an interview. And you can basically say got hired on, but it was still like a hiring process. And I was still going through the process when I had this interview with the high school. So I just had to correct that, y'all, because I realized the way I worded it. You're going to hear it in the next clip. I'm going to say around the time when I became a corrections officer. You're going to hear me say it. Then I proceed to talk about this interview that I had at the old high school that I used to teach at. So I just wanted to correct that, y'all. Y'all, not in the last clip I just said the interview took place in 2023. No, it did not. I did get back on island November of 2022, and I was on island for a whole year, 2023, not working. I did security off and on, but I did not get that interview with the old school that I used to teach at until a year after getting back on island. So it was at the beginning of 2024, and that was around the time when I was going through the process of trying to become a cadet. So I got the timeline messed up a little bit. It was not 2023. It was 2024, y'all. Because remember, I told you it took me a whole year to get into the facility as a corrections officer. So I did not get into the facility until the beginning of 2025. Or you could say the end of 2024. It was literally right after the big incident with the personal trainer from the gym that's been ongoing for the last 2 years. It was right after that happened was when I heard back from them finally, and orientation started, and I was able to get into the facility as a cadet. So it took a whole year. But a year prior to me getting into the facility was when this interview took place, around the time when I first started the hiring process for the job as a cadet / corrections officer. And that was at the beginning of 2024. So I had been back on island for about a year and change from trying to relocate in 2022 and the targeting going viral, etc. So at the beginning of 2024 was when this interview with my old school, the old school I used to teach at, took place. I'm sitting here trying to put the clips together and clean things up, and this is why I keep making corrections before you finally get to the next clip. Another thing I heard that was I wouldn't say it is a grammatical error. It's not a grammatical error, but it was an error that I didn't mean to make, where I was talking about being mixed up. I said I'm mixed up, and I said I'm not talking about ethnicity. I mean culturally, island culture. What I meant was nationality, talking about island nationality and lineage, where my family's from. So I was trying to specify that it wasn't race. I wasn't talking about that. I meant more so nationality and where my family comes from. So just wanted to correct that also. I was exhausted when I made the video earlier, y'all. And you're going to hear me say that throughout the course of the video. Also, one more thing, y'all, before you hear this clip. In the next clip, you're going to hear me talking about this lady that works in there that was training me, an older lady that has the same last name as my mother's maiden last name. And then when I finish up talking about her, I try to rewind back into the story before I even got into the facility when I had this interview at the high school that I used to teach at. And so I was trying to remember what led to me going off on the tangent and talking about what happened when I got in there, when I dealt with her. And I said it was because of the last name thing. No, that wasn't why. The tangent was the comments that she was making about there already being too many chiefs in there. And if you have this degree or that degree, why are you here? That was what led to me talking about that and hopping ahead in the story, because I wanted to rewind. It was just, it ties into what happened when I sat down with these administrators in the school. And the comment I made about not necessarily wanting, not that I didn't want the job, I didn't say that, but just saying that I would rather work this job instead if I could get it. And me saying that, I don't think that was, you're going to hear, y'all, just listen to the video. I don't want to stammer all over my words, but that's why I went off on that tangent, because I said it was the last name thing. No, that's not why. The tangent I went off on was tying back to this interview that I had with the high school I used to teach at before I got into the facility. So I believe that's why she was making those comments. Well, yeah, y'all, I'm back. So like I'm saying, it's a horrible experience. So I believe multiple things were at play for why I was treated the way I was treated in there. Obviously, due to the targeting of shared offensive content, right? Reactive abuse. I've talked about this in prior videos, y'all. I understand that, right? But I've dealt with people during the targeting, different people, and I've gotten different treatment. That was part of it, of course. Not stupid. I think another part of it was they felt like I didn't want the job to begin with. I really do believe that's what it was. I think they felt like I wanted to be a teacher, and I think they felt like I had some sort of superiority complex or feeling. I don't know. This is the vibe I'm getting just from some of the comments that was made. And also, like I said, the treatment that I got. And then I think back to when I became a corrections officer there. I remember this was around the time when I was called in for an interview at my old school where I was a teacher for 2 years before I tried to relocate off island. And at this time, I had already applied to become a corrections officer, and the process was ongoing. I hadn't started working there yet. And then they called me in for an interview at my old school. And so when I went in for the interview, I remember talking to the headmaster. This was before I had the big anxious meltdown. I don't want to say meltdown. It wasn't a meltdown. But I was so anxious. Remember, this was when I had first gotten back on island, y'all, from the targeting going viral in the States. And I came back like, you could say, a basket case. I don't want to use these terms, right? But like I came back anxious and with PTSD, etc. So when I sat through that interview with the assistant principals at the school I used to teach at and with the headmaster, I was shaking like a leaf. And so obviously I know that's why they never called me back after that. I had that sit down with them. But during that sit down, and everybody's watching, the whole island's watching everything, right? During that sit down, while I'm having this conversation with the headmaster, he asked me if I have any other jobs right now. And I said, no. I said I did apply to become a corrections officer, but if I can get this job, I want this job. I want to teach. And so I believe they saw all of that. I know they saw all of that. And I think that was part of the problem too. I really do. Look, the birds are chirping and going crazy in the background of craziness. And I say that because there was a corrections officer in there. I said this already. An older lady, not old. She's not super old. She looks like younger than my mom, but older. Like, I think if I were to guess, I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. If I were to guess, I think maybe her 50s. I think she's in her 50s. She's been there for buku years. She's been there for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, to the point where I'm hearing she's going to retire soon. I think if she wanted to retire today, she could, because she's been there so long. But for whatever reason, she's choosing to still work there. I guess make more money, more pension, whatever. I don't know. None of my business. She's another one that was really didn't care for me, I could tell, and like treating me this kind of way. And I'm trying to like ask her questions and she's pinching her nose like I'm annoying her. And I remember she had a last name that's the same. Remember, y'all, I'm from a small island, right? I realize that's not her last name anyway. I think that's her husband's last name. So even if that is family, she's not my family. It would be her husband. But I'm mixed up, y'all. And when I say mixed up, I'm just talking island culture. And I'm not talking necessarily about ethnicity, although I do have some stuff in me. It's not really like, it's not relevant. What I mean is I'm from this island for the most part. This is the Virgin Islands, United States Virgin Islands. I've talked about this before, y'all. But I have family from everywhere. My dad and his family is from Trinidad. I also have some family from the Bahamas, from Barbados, on that side. But for the most part, Trinidad. That's where my people are from, on my dad's side. My mom's side, that's where I have family here. My mom is she's from the Virgin Islands, right? But her mother was from this island, St. Croix, and her father was from St. Thomas. So it's half and half, or a quarter. I guess you could say I have a quarter Tomian in me, St. Thomas, and I have a quarter Crucian in me, St. Croix, and then I'm half Trini. My father's from Trinidad. So my mother's maiden name, her maiden name is the same last name as this lady. And it's actually from St. Thomas, but it's also a Crucian last name too. It's from this island and it's from the neighboring island. So I noticed she had the last name. So I was just trying to, I'm not even a social person. I suck at small talk. I'm awkward. I'm targeted. But throughout the years, I've learned how to deal with my awkwardness and try to be gregarious, try to make conversation to make things work, especially if I'm sitting up under you for 8 hours straight. I remember trying to find some kind of common ground with her and say like, hey, I said, your last name is so-and-so. I said, is it from this island? I remember her just kind of like, no, or whatever she said. She cut like this dry answer. I was like, oh my God, I was trying to like open the door for conversation and say, hey, we might be related, that my mother's maiden last name is the same last name as your last name. I couldn't even get there with her. She was just so like, and then I just could tell she didn't care for me. She was one of the ones that when she was training me, it's like I'm annoying her. I'm asking her questions about the job and she's pinching her nose like my breath stinks even though I'm wearing a mask. And there were so many ones like that I trained under, and I realized, let me just shut up and sit here. And eventually I got a coloring book and I started coloring in the coloring book. So I wouldn't bother the officers that were forced. I felt like they were being forced and held at I don't want to say at ransom, but like held hostage and forced to train me for the day. I'm like, oh my God, every day felt like a burden. Like I'm being a burden to the officer. Can you imagine what that feels like? And it's like, you want the job, but it's like, this is horrible. So anyways, nonetheless, so because I'm going off on a tangent. I'm not even getting into the treatment that I got yet. I wasn't supposed to get there yet. I was first trying to tell you what happened before I even got in there and what I believe led to some of the treatment I got in there. But I accidentally hopped ahead of myself and started talking about the training experience with one of the officers, because this is where I'm tying it back to what happened before I got in there. With some of the comments that same officer used to make. Like, she kept making these comments about, like, there's already a bunch of chiefs in here and we don't need any more chiefs, and if you have this degree and that degree, then why are you here and this and that?
Calm down, please. Today is the Sabbath.
If you have this degree and that degree, why are you in here? And I remember when she was just yelling, and I was like, what is going on? And she kept like making these kind of comments, and I was just like, what the heck? You know, because in my head, I'm like, I'm not coming in there trying to do anything other than be a corrections officer. Like, eventually down the line, I did want to advance into a different position in there, but not a leadership role. I do have leadership qualities. I was a teacher, but I didn't want no leadership role in there. What I wanted to do was eventually move into mental health in there. I wanted to get my master's degree in psychology, and I wanted to become a psychologist and work with the inmates. That's what I wanted to.
I'm not going to tell you again.
This is so annoying.
Well,
Anyways, y'all, I'm back. Yeah, so that was what the goal was. My plan was to go in there and work amicably, peacefully, and quietly as a corrections officer for a few years while working on getting my master's degree. And eventually, years down the line, I wanted to transition into mental health. I wasn't trying to go in there and rule anybody or be a leader to anybody. I mean, if they did promote me because of my performance to a leadership role, of course I would have taken it, but that was not the goal at all. Anyway, so it was just this type of treatment. But before I even got in there, because like I told you all, I wanted to talk about some of the things that occurred before I got in there and why I believe I received some of the treatment I got in there. And I only hopped ahead and started talking about the treatment, specifically with that officer, because of the last name thing and whatever, right? But let me rewind to before I got in there. So the thing happened where I was called into the school I used to teach at. And this was before I got into the facility. Y'all remember I told y'all it took me a whole year to get in there. So this was when I had just started the process of trying to become a corrections officer, and I had already had the interview, and I had already started the process to get in there. That was when I got called in. This was immediately after getting back on island. This was in 2023 when I first started the process of trying to become a corrections officer. And this was also when my school, the old school that I used to teach at, called me in for an interview. And I had this nervous PTSD reaction. I talked about it in one of the prior videos, y'all. That video is from almost like damn near 2 years ago. I'm not even about to go and try and find that video wherever it is. It's in my channel. If y'all look through it, if you do your research and you really listen to my videos, you'll hear that video. But anyways, I was called in for an interview at the school, like I said, that I used to teach at. And I sat down with the administrators, all people I worked with before, and the headmaster. And it was a warm, welcoming environment, but it had nothing to do with them or the environment that they provided. It really was just PTSD and trauma. I talked about it in my prior videos. And so I was sitting there shaking like a leaf. And I believe that's why they never called me back after that day. But nonetheless, during the interview, the headmaster asked me, do you have anything going on right now? Or are there any other jobs you're working? And I said, well, I did apply to become a corrections officer, like I said in the last clip, y'all. And the process is ongoing, but if I can get this job, I'd rather this job, which I don't think is a problem, me saying something like that, when that's mainly all I've done throughout the course of the last few years. I got my degree in English. So typically, if you get a degree in English, you're likely going to become a teacher, or you might go to law school. You can go to law school with an English degree, but these are the things that you're going to end up doing because, English is somewhat of an educational, I would say, major. Anyway, so nonetheless, they know that this is the experience I had. You knew I was an English teacher for 2 years before I left Ireland. You knew that was something I applied to do. So why would that be something offensive, me saying that? Or why would that be something that would cause me to receive harsh treatment? And the only reason I'm saying that is because the birds started chirping when I said this in the last clip. I know that's largely, what was going on, some of it. Anyway, so they didn't call me back. So I full throttle pursued the corrections officer thing because I was interested in law enforcement. And in the past, I looked into law enforcement. I even showed them old emails from when I was in college, about to graduate magna cum laude. So there was no motive for me to do it other than I just wanted to. I had reached out to an Air Force officer, and I was trying to become an officer in the Air Force. And I was talking back and forth. I was communicating with not a lieutenant. I'm sorry. a sergeant. And the only reason I didn't pursue it, I didn't go full throttle, was because I saw how long the process was going to take. And I was already into teaching, and I was interested in teaching too. And I said, you know what, let me just go ahead and become a teacher. I'm already a substitute teacher. I'm about to get my degree. Let me just do that. And so that's what I decided to do. But I've always been here or there with the career. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I've had several interests. I'm an athletic person, and I'm somebody that likes to do research. I'm into psychological health, etc. So I have an interest in different things. I've had an interest in law. I've had an interest in criminal justice. I've had an interest in teaching, etc., etc. I've had an interest in science. There was a point where I wanted to be a marine biologist. I've been all over the place. I can do anything. I'm a a versatile person, and I have many interests. So it's not a thing where, oh, okay, this is better than that. It was more so like, this is what I know, and this is what I enjoy doing, and this is what I have experience doing. And I even went to school for. So yeah, I would rather do this. And I applied to do this first. The only reason I didn't do it was I didn't get through. And so then I also applied to become a corrections officer. And if the opportunity is open, then I'm open to doing it. It wasn't a dig at anybody, or I think I'm better than. I don't know what it was. But anyway, so y'all, I didn't hear back from the school when I had that anxious interview with the principals. One of the principals was the chairperson over the English department. I worked with her directly, and I was even shaking with her, and she was somebody that made me feel pretty comfortable. I was even shaking with her. It was an anxious reaction. I had just gotten back on island, like I said, from all those scary, crazy things that happened to me when I tried to relocate off island. Anyway, y'all, so that's why I believe, those are two of the reasons why I believe I got the treatment I got. Because of some of the offensive content I shared or reactions that I had right before getting back on island due to the targeting following me. Listen to my story, y'all. I believe that was partially it. And I believe the teacher thing, them thinking that I wanted to be a teacher and that I had some sort of feeling of superiority. The third thing, y'all, and the third thing I actually want to make it the first thing, I think it had a lot to do with the man from the gym. Right before, and I said this in one of the prior videos, y'all, remember I had been trying to get into the facility for like a whole year. The process took a whole year for me to get in there, longer than it would typically take, and I know it had to do with targeting. This was a year after I had sat down with the principals at my old school and I didn't get the job. This was a whole year later when I was still working out at the old gym, right at the end of 2024, when I had that horrible reaction to the man from the gym, the main personal trainer that's caused all the drama for the last 2 years for me, right? After he had randomly started doing horrible stuff to me for a whole month. You know, this was tied to the Italian trainer. Y'all listen to the videos. I'm not retelling the story. I don't even care to. I'm so over the situation. I really wish it would just I'm so over it. It's caused me so much freaking drama and headache and Anyway, y'all. So after I finally reacted to the crazy weird stuff he was doing for a whole month, the personal trainer, and I said nasty, or well, I didn't say it. Remember what the technology that they use on you, y'all, neuromonitoring is conducted. And so they can hear your thoughts in real time. I thought whatever horrible, nasty things I thought towards him, which is basically as good as me saying it out loud. Everybody heard my thoughts. Weird sci-fi stuff, y'all. If you're new to the channel, don't start at this video. You're going to be lost. Check out my prior videos. Check out the links in the description box and comment section. Learn about the technology utilized on targets. Learn about some of the things being used in this day and age, y'all. We're living in the technological age. We are in some different times, y'all. Anyway, so they heard my thoughts in real time, and it's like it humiliated the man. He left the gym, and I didn't see him for weeks, and then after that, it was up from there. It was just torture nonstop. And I'm sticking his girlfriend on top of me, doing all these horrible tactics. I don't even want to talk about the thing, y'all. I'm so over it. I'm so over it. I've dealt with so much. But anyway, a lot of those people in that facility are directly associated with him. They're good friends with him. In fact, one of his good buddies, his sister was one of the people that had to train me. So you have to understand how closely related these people are to this man and the connectivity, right? So I noticed, remember I had been trying to get into the facility for a whole year, and it had been months on end, and I had not heard from them. After I had this big, nasty, explosive reaction on the man after he was doing whatever he was doing for a whole month unprovoked, then he disappeared out the gym for like a whole week. It looked like he was embarrassed or whatever happened, right? I noticed a week after that, that was when I heard from the corrections officer job. I hadn't heard from them in months. All of a sudden, I get this email that the process is going to continue. And, this was the email that I was actually going to orientation now, and I was actually finally getting into the facility. So I believe that was largely, and some of the comments they were making too about being a bitch and like hints about me being a bitchy person or a bitch and being a werewolf and all these different, I almost want to say gaslighting terms, because I know you sat there and saw what happened, but whatever, it's subjectivity, right? Whatever the case is, so that's what I think. Those three things I think is what caused the treatment that I received when I got in there. I believe number one, it's largely tied to that man from the old gym, because a lot of those people in there are his good friends. Number two, I believe it's some of the offensive things I shared right before getting back on island due to reactive abuse and the targeting following me. And number three, I believe it was the teaching thing. I really do. And so it was just horrible treatment in there, y'all. It was horrible. I was really trying my damnedest at first when I first got in there. And then it's like the slow progression into like this subpar performance. And yeah, I want the job, but oh my God, every day feels like a freaking nightmare, the way I'm being treated. And then I was working the night shift too. I was a security guard at the time. I hadn't quit my security job. So every night I was working. And then I would come in and do this big, long, arduous shift. And so it was just draining, y'all. It was horrible. I was like, if I could just make it through this portion here where I'm a cadet and I have to shadow these officers and I can get my own spot in there, then I'll be okay. I won't have to. Yeah, it's a teamwork type of position. You're constantly having to communicate with the other officers, but it's not as intimate as me sitting up under you for 8 hours and it feeling like you are babysitting me. So like, if I could get through this part right here, I always used to say that. And I even purchased a coloring book, y'all. I used to sit in the corner after a while and just color and try to be invisible. That became an issue. I wasn't paying attention to the job. Then several of the officers slipped up and told me that the other cadets were allowed to have cell phones in there. And that typically they have cell phones in there and they're able to use that throughout the day as long as they're paying attention to what's going on around them. They're not sitting there with their head down the whole time. I was not allowed to have my cell phone in there. They wanted me to sit there with the cameras on me, with the officer that was annoyed with me, and keep my head up and just sit there for hours on end while the officer that's training me was on the computer off and on. I was to sit there with nothing to do and just keep my head up and, deal with whatever treatment was happening. So anyway, whatever with the cell phone thing, right? Because technically, if you're following the rules, you're not supposed to have cell phones in there. But they slipped up and told me that they had cell phones in there. So with me, it was like strictly stickler for the rules type stuff. And I'm the one with the peculiar situation where the officers are annoyed with me. The cameras are on me and I'm the one that can't use any type of anything. I have to sit up, and it was just like this unusual punishment is what it felt like. Anyway, and then my thoughts are projecting. My brain, it feels like my brain is ticking due to anxiety. It was rough, y'all. So anyway, eventually, like I said, I had purchased a coloring book and I used to try to sit in the corner and be invisible so it wouldn't feel like I was annoying the officer that got stuck with me for the day. And then they used that as an excuse to fire me. That wasn't why they fired me, but that was the excuse they used. They all got together collaboratively and said I wasn't doing anything. They said I was sitting there not doing anything and I didn't want the job. Even though every time I was under officers, I would constantly be asking, is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything I can do? No, not at the moment. Not right now. Not right now. Constantly I was asking, is there anything I can do at the moment? Anything else I can do at the moment? No, not right now. No, not right now. But me coloring in the coloring book because I feel like I'm annoying you when I ask questions was me not doing anything. That wasn't why they got rid of me, but that was the excuse they used. And it happened right after this incident with this other corrections officer. This girl that had just gotten in there, her father works in there. And she had just come back from cadet school. So she had just finished a process I was going through. So she went to a police academy, and that's why I had no interaction with her. I didn't know who she was. And so while I was in there shadowing and stuff, she was away at academy. She got past the part that I was doing where I had to shadow the officers, and she got sent to police academy. So she comes into the facility, and, I didn't really know her like that. I didn't have any issue with her or any personal thing with her. But they put her one day, right? This was shortly before I lost a job. I was sitting with that same lady that I said has the same last name as my mother. My mother's maiden name is her last name. I was sitting with her, and the way the units are set up is like you have two sides to the unit. It's almost like two offices that are split in two, but there's like an opening where there's no wall. So it's like the offices are connected. If you've ever been in a prison on a unit, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you can look it up if you don't understand what I'm saying or how it's set up. So she was on her unit, right? And we're on our unit. And so she's kind of getting like, even though she's now in her own role, right? She's been away to police academy for months on end. She's kind of, in a way, still getting trained too. And so anytime she has questions or she needs help, the officer, I guess you could say seasoned officer, is there to assist her. So I'm sitting up under her today too, right? So I think she was just super annoyed. She had me sitting under her and she already didn't care for me. And then she had that girl over on the unit that she had to assist, right? So I remember the girl was there and she was acting normal, right? And, I didn't know that there was any issue. I talked about this right before I lost the job, y'all. I'm telling you, I made a video about the thing because I felt awkward about it. And then it's like right after I lost the job. And I never said whatever, she made a comment and I just got uncomfortable with the comment she made because at this point I had already dealt with directed convo in there. This thing where, you know how directed convo works, where somebody will have a conversation with someone, but they're saying things directed at you. So it just turned into this thing where I never knew if directed convo was being used or not. Because it had happened so much in there. Though I already talked about this guy in there where that was happening. Not to go off on a tangent, y'all. This officer, I believe he's around my age. I don't know what his issue was. So when I first met him, when I got in there, I don't want to go off on a tangent, y'all. I'm just trying to show you an example of where I dealt with directed convo before and why I felt like this might have been directed convo too. And so they can't really fault me for feeling that way. It's PTSD. If I've already dealt with it, then, I might think that everything is directed convo, especially the way that her words trailed off when she said what she said. So anyway, this guy, I'm going to get back to what happened with this officer that got back from police academy that was sitting at the other unit in a minute, right? And what led to, I believe, the coup de grace of them getting together and getting rid of me. I think they didn't want me there anyway, but what led to them getting rid of me, right? So anyway, Jesus Christ. And I'm a fighter, y'all. I don't usually force myself into positions or spaces where I don't feel welcome. I'm so not that person. Like with the first sign of discomfort or feeling unwelcome, I hightail it out there and I have a lot to offer too. Typically, I would have been out of there in a heartbeat. But it's just the fact that I don't have options. It's like, this is a decent job and I feel like I deserve to work it as much as anyone else does. And I know I have the experience and I know I have things to offer. And so it was more so that headstrong way in me where it's like, I don't care how you feel. I deserve to be here and I'm going to stay here is how I felt. But had I had a normal life like what I had before the targeting, I would have just easily found a different job, like in a heartbeat. I'm telling you, but it was the circumstances why I put up with what I was dealing with and why I was so headstrong about staying despite the treatment I was getting. But anyways, y'all, so before that incident, there were several moments like this that happened, but this is the one that sticks out in my head the most. There was this officer in there. He's around my age. He had this big, huge beard. I remember when I first got in there, I saw him a few times. They never put me under him to train. Never. I've trained with several officers. He was one of the few that I never trained under. And then there was this one time where I was training with another male officer, and he called the unit while I was sitting there. And the officer I was sitting with said, "Hey, the phone's for you." So I said, "Hello?" He said, "Hey," he said, "Hi, I just wanted to meet you. I know I've saw you a few times, but we never got to talk or whatever." He said, "My name is so-and-so." I said, "Okay, hi, nice to meet you." He said, "Nice to meet you too." He said, "Hopefully we get to have a conversation." I can't remember verbatim what the man said. I don't want to say the wrong thing and create stuff. I cannot remember. To save my life, I can't remember what this man said. But this is like the gist of what he said. Something about hopefully getting to have a conversation with me and, really getting to see and talk to me or whatever he said. Something like that. I can't remember exactly what the man said. This was recorded. It all happened on camera, right? So anyway, I said, yeah, hopefully, we had like a nice little mini friendly conversation. It lasted for about 30 seconds. And then I hung up the phone. After that, I never trained with the man. Months on end, I never trained with him. I barely saw him. Every now and then, I would see him coming in. He was like this phantom figure to me, you could say, because I did not know him like that. Then this day came, right, where it was one of these days where the treatment was bad in there, which was often. And I went outside to have lunch, and I grabbed my lunch and stuff. And as I was headed outside to eat my lunch, he was headed into the building, right? And we walked in the same corridor together. And so he did this smile at me and nodded or waved. I think he waved at me or nodded his head or something like that. And I think I had this mean look on my face. It wasn't me trying to be a bitch. I was just whatever I was dealing with in there. And so I think I did nod, though. I would never just, I can't do that. I don't have that type of personality. I would never just pass somebody straight. I think I did nod at him or something, but I think my expression looked mean. I don't know. But I went outside and I sat outside and I was eating my lunch, and they were just doing a bunch of ref campaign. They used to do this all the time when I was eating the cafeteria food. Sometimes when I eat food, if I'm really tired, it's difficult for me to swallow, especially when they're hitting me with the energy weapon off and on. I've talked about this already, y'all. I suffer with dysphagia off and on due to the targeting, stress, exhaustion, energy weapon attacks, etc. So sometimes I'm eating the cafeteria food and it tastes good. It did not taste bad. I'm eating it. It's just a big plate of food. Everybody's staring at me like a freak show. I can't eat comfortably. You can sit and eat comfortably. Everybody's staring at me. I have to eat a certain kind of way. I just hate this program. So anyway, they're trying to eat the food, and because it looks like I'm having trouble swallowing or whatever, I'm trying to eat the food slowly. They're revving by in the road and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And sometimes the cafeteria ladies used to look like they were having an attitude with me. Like they thought that I was, I guess, making their food look bad or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just trying to eat and live like a human. So anyways, so they're revving and going crazy, and then I think it started raining. And so I grabbed my food and I was going to go in the computer lab to finish my lunch. So when I went in the computer lab, the dude with the beard was in there, and he had like a brown bag, and he was eating or finishing up eating. And so I said, you're in here? And I didn't mean it in a disrespectful way. It wasn't like, get out, I'm coming in here. Of course not. You're a seasoned officer. You have more of a right to be here than me. I'm just a cadet. It was more so like, if he's sitting there having lunch, I'm not going to come in there and sit because my brain ticks. I don't want to ruin his lunch. First of all, I have cameras following me. So if I sit in there with you and you're trying to have a private lunch, that means your whole lunch is going to be on camera too, and the whole island's going to be watching you too. So you have to deal with whatever weird situation I'm dealing with. But then also my thoughts are projecting. And so I don't want to sit there and my brain start taking the stupid thing that happens to me and ruin your lunch. It was more out of consideration than anything else. I said, you're in here? And then so I was singing it in this way like I was going to turn around and leave. And I saw him do this kind of face. And then he just kind of like slammed the thing in the garbage, the bag he had, and he got up and he left. So I was like, okay. So I don't know if I offended him in that moment or if the moment when he was walking by me in the corridor and I had the look on my face because of the day I was having. I don't know to this day what caused the attack, right? But I know they finally did put me to train with him, right? This was shortly before I lost the job. So I had been in there for a few months while and I hadn't trained with him. They finally, for whatever reason, put me to train with him. He's sitting on one side of the unit and I was training with the officer on the other side of the unit. Remember, I just explained to you all, the units are connected. And so you have an officer on one side of the unit, and then you have an officer that's controlling another unit. And I would be put to train with one of these officers. I don't know what that loud, annoying sound was. But anyway, so they put me to train with him. Not with him, excuse me. They put me to train with the other officer that was working opposite of him. And that officer had gotten up, I think, and went outside to answer a phone call or something. Something made them get up. They ran out real quick. And so I was in there with him by myself on the unit. And I'm aware of the fact that I'm being watched on camera. This was also part of the torture because I'm aware of the fact that everyone's staring at me, and I could tell that the officer on the other unit is watching me on their phone. It's just such a horrible, horrible experience being targeted, y'all. It's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, especially if you're somebody that's introverted and awkward. It's like the worst thing to do to somebody like with my personality. It's horrible to do this to anyone, much less somebody like me. Like, it's just crazy. So I'm aware of the fact that he's watching me and he's having this conversation with somebody. I think she was a teacher, coincidentally enough. It seemed like somebody he had just started dating, right? I gathered this from the conversation he was having. I couldn't help but hear the conversation. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't care what this man was talking about. I couldn't help but hear the conversation. So he's talking to her and, he starts saying these mean directed convos about funguses and itching and I forgot what else. And he's something else. I made a video about it. Yeah, it was so long ago at this point now, and it's so irrelevant to me. I can't even remember everything that was said, but it was just mean directed convo. I was like, what is his issue? He was saying some mean directed convo. And then eventually they did put me to work directly under him. And again, he was doing the directed convo. He was on the phone with this girl again. And he was, while he's having the conversation, I'm blinking and I'm getting awkward and I'm having this awkward look on my face because I could tell I'm being watched on camera. I don't give a shit what you're talking about. I don't care. It's like I know I'm being watched on camera, right? So I start having this awkward reaction again while he's on the phone having this conversation. He starts doing the directed convo again, like, you can't hide your reaction. And what other craziness he said. I can't remember whatever else he was saying. He was saying horrible stuff, y'all. I was like, this man is tripping. I said, what is his problem? I remember thinking in my head, digging through my because the interaction with him had been minimal. I was digging through my brain trying to figure out, what did you do to piss this man off? What did you do? Because I remember the initial one little mini conversation I had with him was pleasant, where he went out of his way to call the unit and talk to me. And it seemed like a pleasant conversation. And now it's just like this horrible ass, like, directed convo. I'm like, what is this man's problem? So anyway, that was one example where I dealt with directed convo, and one example of some of the stuff I used to deal with in there, just so you can understand. Anyway, so nonetheless, now I'm sitting on the unit. Fast forward back to this moment right before I lost the job. I'm sitting on the unit with this lady that I could tell didn't care for me. The same older lady that I told you had the same last name as my mother's maiden name. And on the other unit was the girl that had just gotten back from police academy. And her father works in there. I had trained with her father before. He's done directed convo before too and stuff, but he was mostly friendly before the incident and actually kind of like a funny person. He used to have me cracking up sometimes. Like, you know, some people that are naturally funny, like he has that kind of personality where he can just make you laugh and it's like he's not necessarily trying. But anyway, of course, now since the thing has happened is, you know, terrible. Like, you don't care for me at all because this was with his daughter, the whole thing that happened that led to them getting together and firing me. But they didn't want me in there to begin with. Anyway, so it was obvious. Anyway, so nonetheless, right? So she's over at her side of the unit and she had to go do head count. And that's something that they do in the prison, y'all. I'm not about to explain the processes in there, right? But you have to go in at certain times during the day and do head count so you can account for all the prisoners at all times, right? So it's time for her to do head count, and the person that was over me, this seasoned officer, went over to assist her. So I went over there with her. I don't know what it was, y'all. I was wearing my mask. My face was barely ever out in there. You know, I used to be wearing the mask in the dark shades because I used to feel so freaking uncomfortable. They were pretending like my breath stunk. I'm being watched on camera. I'm dealing with directed convo, etc. I used to feel extremely uncomfortable. I was in there with my mask and my big dark shades on. So these inmates or prisoners, whatever, detainees, they were not seeing my face. All they were seeing was a mask, shades, and clothes. Correction officer clothes. But I think it's just because I was a new female in there, I did start to get a lot of attention from the inmates and the detainees. And I think that's what happens with most females, with new females. This is what some of the officers were explaining to me. They said, if you look okay and you come in there as a female, you're going to get attention. That's just how it works because they're not, you know, these are men. And they're locked up for months on end and they don't really have contact with females like that. Unless you have a, you know, a guest that comes to see you. For the most part, you're in there and you're really just dealing with the correction officers, the same, you know, females every day, day in and day out. And they're wearing heavy, you know, clothing, baggy clothing, you know, so anything new that's a female is going to get your attention, especially if it looks okay. You know, you just got to look okay. You don't have to be no fine thing. So anyway, I was getting attention in there. That was also when they started this Don't Want campaign. I'm not even about to go into the details about it, y'all. A lot happened in there. I'm telling you. A lot that I made videos about last year, y'all. I'm not really about to go into all of it. I'm really not. Look, they're chirping the bird because they know full well what happened. Anyway, so we went into the unit, right? And I went in with the lady. And when I went in there, they're like, what? Who's that? Who's that? They start going ham. Who's that? Who's that? I was like, what? They've seen me before. I'm like, what's going on like that? I'm like, who's that? Who's that? And they said, wait, I think that's nurse. I think that's nurse. This is what one of them was saying. I was like, why did, you know, back then I was working and I was gaining weight like crazy, y'all. Remember I told you I was like 192 back then? Way more than I weigh now. Like I was really working out and eating a lot of stuff and I had gained a lot of weight back then. So they going on ham. I'm like, huh? They're going ham. So I didn't know all then. Maybe she was, I don't know. Like I said, the conversation she had on the phone, I still to this day don't know if it was for me or not. If it was directed convo or if because I had dealt with directed convo with other officers, I assumed it was for me. So anyway, that happened when I went in there on her unit. Then I come out, right? I go back on the unit that I was on with the seasoned officer after we did head count and everything. And the seasoned officer went outside for a phone call. She went outside to do a phone call. While she went outside on my side now, on the side, her unit, right? So we're no longer on the novice officer's side. I'm back on my side, right? With the seasoned officer. We already helped her with head count and that thing. That low moment happened in there. I go by the gate because there's this officer, this inmate on her side, the seasoned officer side, that all day long had been asking her if he could go to the library. And they don't really care for him in there. It's like, I think he has mental health issues or whatever. So they were like kind of annoyed with him in there, right? So when she went out there, I know she kept kind of like cutting him off about the library thing. And they have the reasons why they do what they do. They've been in there longer than me. I don't know what his behaviors are, and I think maybe he's had some bad behaviors in there. And that's why they were moving like that with him. but they didn't want to let him go to the library, right? And all day long he was trying to get to the library, so I felt bad for him. So when she went out there on the phone call, I remembered him coming by the glass and knocking on the glass again, and I knew what he was there for. So I went outside to the gate and I tried to make conversation with him, and I said, hey, I said, I don't know what's going on, right? I said, you have to wait for Miss So-and-so to come back in here and she'll let you know what's going on. But from what she told me, she's waiting to hear back from Miss So-and-so, the lady that works by the library, y'all. Another officer that did kind of try to sensitize me to. I'm not going to go into details with that. You got to wait to hear back from her to see if you could go over there. And he said, well, can you please go ask her? Can you please go ask her again? I feel bad for him because he kind of had, like, to me, the demeanor of a child. I can tell he has mental health issues. And so it seemed like I was dealing with a misbehaved child that was getting ignored, is what it felt like. So I felt bad for him. So although I know I had seen her all day long saying, he could wait, like she didn't really want to let him go to the library. And from what I'm understanding, he has some sort of behavioral problem, right? And mental health issues. I went out there to her and I said, hey, so-and-so is asking about the library again. And she said, she sucked it to them. She said, listen, I didn't have time for that stripping. Whatever she told me, brushed me off, and said, no, he ain't going over there is basically what she was telling me. He's not going over there. And it has something to do with his behavior. But with him, she kept telling him she's waiting to hear back from so-and-so instead of just telling him, no, you ain't going today. It was more so like this. We're waiting to hear back from him. I would have more so quicker just told him, listen, it's not happening today. So he could stop coming by the gate and feeling this false hope like he's going to be able to go over there. So anyway, I remember going by the gate and just kind of trying to talk to him and let him know, listen, I feel bad to lying to him. I just wanted to just tell him it's not happening. But anyway, so when I was just having like conversation with him and I explained to him, look, they're still waiting. There's nothing else I could do. I said, they're just waiting to hear back, okay? So then I said, where are you from? Asking me questions about myself. I said, oh, I'm from here. But, I started giving him a little background about where my family's from because he was asking me why I talk the way I talk. So he said, Trinidad. When I told him my dad's from Trinidad, he said, all the women from Trinidad are beautiful and this and that, whatever. He's giving me compliments. It's just how it is in there, man. It's not a big deal. He gave me a couple compliments. I said, thank you, whatever I said to him. He's an older man too, y'all, like, just so you can understand. An older man that has mental health issues. So I was being respectful towards him. So anyway, after I finished the conversation with him, I go and I sit on the unit. The experienced officer was still outside. I believe she was on a phone call, if I'm not mistaken. It was either a phone call or she was waiting for somebody. I can't remember, y'all. Either a phone call or she was waiting for somebody outside of the unit. So I sit down, and the girl that's on the other unit, the new girl, right? She's on a phone call. And similar to what happened with the dude with the beard that was doing all the horrible directed convo, she starts saying something about, I can't believe that girl thought anybody was jealous of her. I can't believe that girl thought anybody was jealous of her. So I'm sitting there, my ears perk up. I'm like, is she talking about me? Because I'm so traumatized and used to dealing with directed combo, I didn't know if she was talking about me or not. And I know I just had this interaction where the inmate was kind of like saying stuff towards me. I know what happened when I went on her unit not too long ago. So I'm wondering to myself, is this directed towards me? I couldn't help but think that I'm human. I did wonder. I was trying to figure out if it was directed towards me. So she made the comment and then she trailed off. It's not like she just made the comment and then continued her conversation. And so it was left to me, to the interpretation, and left for me to try to figure out, is she talking about me or not? She said it and then trailed off and stopped talking. So I remember sitting up and I know I'm being watched. This is how they do it. People will be having conversations on phones and whatever they have on their phone that's allowing them to watch me, they're watching me. So she said it and then she trailed off and then she stopped talking. And so that's why I got uncomfortable. I was like, no, man, she is talking about me. I really thought she was talking about me. So I remember kind of sitting there and starting to squirm in my seat. And so I said, you know what, let me go down to the library. I used to do this all the time. After a while, when things would get awkward on the unit, I would find a reason to go to the library. So I remember getting up and, remembering that there was some paperwork I needed to turn in still. And, it had something to do with me. I don't remember what it was for. I think insurance or something like that. I got up and I made some excuse to go down to the library. And I went down to the library. And I remember while I was heading down to the library, the girl I had the dream about was headed up to the unit that same day. And that was also the day where I found out that I was supposed to be doing PT with her. And I had this weird reaction earlier in that same day, too, about finding out I was going to be doing PT with her. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do PT with her. It was that I thought she wouldn't want to do it with me because of the awkward stuff that happened with the dream and stuff. And I wasn't sure how she was going to move with me yet. This was before she started being nice to me. I didn't really know how she was going to move with me yet. I hadn't had many interactions with her. So to me, I was like, with the treatment I'm getting in her, she probably doesn't want to work with me. And then this weird dream thing is happening. I didn't know that they had already probably had conversations prior to me hearing about PT, and it was already decided that she would be doing PT with me. I didn't know. So for me, I knew this lady didn't care for me like that. And to me, I thought it was just a way of her trying to figure out how to get rid of me, because PT was supposed to take up a good chunk of my day. So I would no longer have to sit underneath the officer for my whole shift. I was supposed to do the PT early in the morning, and that was supposed to take away from some of the hours that I worked inside the facility. So this officer, the experienced officer, this was before the girl said the jealous thing or whatever, right? And before she went out there and started having the phone call, she started having this conversation with me about PT. And you're supposed to be doing PT. All the other officers did PT. Did you know that? Da-da-da-da-da. And she was telling me who conducted PT. And so I remembered when she was telling me it was the girl that I had the dream about. I was like, oh my gosh, is there anyone else I can do it with? And I was just going around in circles trying to figure out if there was anyone else I could do it with. And so it might have sounded like I didn't want to work with her, but that wasn't the case. It was more so I was self-conscious about her and how she would feel having to work with me. I already felt like this burden and like I'm annoying everybody in there. I'm like, oh my God, you just trying to throw me off on top of her because you don't want to train me is how I felt. So I know I'm being watched on camera. I kept trying to like figure out if there was anyone else that could do PT with me. Anyway, so then I remember she came up. This was before, because it sounds like I'm hopping all over the place, y'all. This was before the jealous conversation and before I headed down to the library where I saw her coming up the second time. This was earlier in the morning, y'all, before any of that stuff happened. I forgot to mention that this happened that day too. All of these things happened right before I lost the job. I don't think this part had anything to do with it, but I'm remembering everything that happened that day, right? She came up and she did seem kind of like offended. I do remember her coming up and she seemed a little offended. Like she seemed kind of, I can't explain it. Like she saw on camera how it was going on and she seemed offended. And so that was where I started putting it together that maybe she didn't mind doing PT with me. And I think maybe these were conversations they had prior to bringing it up to me, that they were going to let her do PT with me. And I didn't know that. So anyway, that had happened, whatever. It wasn't a big deal. But now I'm heading down from the girl having this conversation that sounded like directed convo, and you can't blame me for thinking that it was. It's not like I sat there feeling, oh, everybody's jealous of me. I didn't feel that way. Anyway, who would be, it's like I'm a target. Really, I'm not in my head thinking that you're jealous of me who's living a tortured lifestyle. I'm not thinking that in my head. So anyways, it was her comment. It was literally out of her own mouth. She said, I can't believe anyone thinks she's jealous of her. And then she trailed off and stopped talking. And I had already dealt with directed convo before. So that's where I got up. I got uncomfortable and I got up and I started going down to the library. And while I'm headed down, that was the second time I saw the girl that I had the dream about for the morning, and she was heading up. And then she stopped me. She had like this brief conversation with me about PT. Because I had said I was going to be calling around and trying to figure out who could do it with me. And she said, did you get to speak with Miss So-and-so? And I said, yes, I did. And she said she's going to find somebody to do PT with me. And she said, okay. I had no idea she already had been designated to do it with me. I had no idea. Anyway, so that's what happened that day, though, y'all. I'm not going to go into the details of everything else that took place. But it was shortly after that incident where they got together and there was this big manila portfolio with complaints on me, where the officers had all signed documents saying that I didn't do anything. I used to sit there and not do anything. When you know that I sat there asking you questions, and every time I'm asking you questions, I'm annoying you, my breath stinks. So then now I get a coloring book, I'm coloring, I'm not doing anything. I would say the only legit complaint in that folder was me being late. That's the only thing I would say I was authentically doing wrong that had nothing to do with the treatment in there. Because I was doing security at night. And so I used to be tired. I didn't ask them to shorten my hours. I wanted money. I was trying to get a new car. And so every night I was working, I had a full schedule doing night shift. And then I would come and do this big, long shift here in the facility. And it was draining. It was extra draining than it should have been due to the circumstances. And so sometimes right before I went in, I would try to get like an hour of sleep. I would literally get off the night shift, hop in my bed, try to sleep for an hour, and then try to get up and go to the day job. And it wasn't working. Like I would be going in sometimes, I would say anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes late sometimes. And so that was the only authentic, I would say, complaint in there that made sense. And not enough to let me go. You could really have I would say that was something that you could have written me up for. I never got written up for being late. I got a verbal reprimand for it one time. I never got written up for it. So for it to hop to termination, no, that's not what it was about. Anyway, so the main complaint though was that I wasn't doing anything. And so they were talking about the coloring in the coloring book. And so I'm like, well, I want to argue that, well, the treatment's terrible and I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm a burden to the officers. So I'm trying to be invisible in color until I can get my own space. It just wasn't, it just didn't, none of it felt fair. I keep saying this, but most targets talk about this. That's how it is when you're targeted. You'll have a certain experience in life before the targeting, and then you have your experience as a target. And employment is usually a difficult area for targets, oftentimes due to the circumstances that you're forced to work under and due to working with people that don't care for you sometimes or have personal feelings towards you for whatever reason. This was layered. It was more than just the targeting with me. It was multiple things at once. I believe it had to do with the man from the gym. So it was personal for a lot of them, I think. It had to do with the teaching thing. And then it also had to do with the offensive things I shared during the course of the targeting, reactive abuse. But the treatment in there was terrible. And so it's just like, I want the job. It's not that I don't want the job, but I also know what I dealt with in there. I know how you feel towards me. And so I'm human. So it's not like this jumping for joy thing, but at the same time, I want the job. Like, how can I explain that to you? Do you understand that? So anyway, nonetheless, right? And this nut that lives next to me, I hate him so bad. He's obsessed with me. It's almost like, I can't even explain. I've talked about this in other videos. He'll purposely stand there by the gate. He has these red beady eyes, y'all. He's very scary looking. I've talked about this in different videos, and he'll stand by his gate all day long making these weird noises to get my attention and doing these weird torture tactics. Another example of reactive abuse. I've been dealing with it for 2 years with him. And due to my circumstance, I can't move. I haven't had an opportunity where I could actually move and be comfortable. I don't have the money to move yet. So it's almost like this forced to deal with him type of situation. You know how horrible that is? It's just like, I could complain and complain about everything, y'all. It's just how it is when you're targeted. You just feel locked in and like everything, like misery is the best way to describe it. And the neighborhoods the houses are so close together in this neighborhood. So you can hear the neighbor literally fart. So every little noise he makes, I can hear it. And it's like this creepy, invasive stalking thing where he knows I can hear him and I can't get away. And it's like it's tickling him and giving him some sort of weird gratification that he can do what he's doing to me and that he has the access that he has. It's really creepy. I keep saying that it's very scary what I'm dealing with him and what I've been dealing with. Anyway, y'all. So, y'all, it's been 6 years. I want them to let me out of the program. You know, long story short, I want them to let me out of the program. It's been 6 years. There are people that I know they know have done worse things and they don't do anything to that person. It's personal. This is personal, what's happening to me. It's not about any crime that was committed. It's personal. And they've made it very clear. They've even used, as the claimant, you know, they try to use partially some of it as the reaction I had after 2 years of you doing this to me before I ever said anything racial. Because you were doing this before I tried to relocate off island. That was why I tried to relocate. It had nothing to do with that. I sat in my car for a month and shared offensive racial propaganda when I tried to relocate off island. Y'all already know this happened. This was over 4 years ago now, y'all, at this point. I've apologized numerous times. The people who created the content, I'm not trying to come for them. I don't mean to keep bringing them up. I'm just trying to show you that this is personal. It's not about anything that they're pretending it's about. The people who created the content, who actually believe in those things and teach those things on a daily basis, they've used them as gang stalkers on me, wearing the purple outfit and everything. It's not about anything that they're pretending it's about. You can pretend like it's about bearing false witness. How many people have lied down here maliciously? Malicious lies. Okay, I thought something was going on and I made an insinuation. Malicious lies. I know many. And you didn't do this to them. I'm no longer bearing false witness. I've apologized. It's been years. Why are you still doing this other than the fact that it's personal and you just want to keep torturing me? Why are you still doing this to me? Other than it's just enjoyable watching sadistically somebody that you don't care for get tortured and suffer for years on end. Anyways, y'all. So nonetheless, y'all, back to what I'm saying. That means to hop all over the place. So that was what happened shortly before I lost the job in there. It was that thing, that jealous thing, and this is why I believe they started using the green on me. I think it's mainly because of what happened before I lost that job in there. But what that girl said, I didn't say it. And she trailed off, and you know the experiences I've had in there, so it's understandable why I might think that this is directed combo. It's not like I said, they're just jealous of me, and I made that comment and then lost the job or whatever, they did what they did. It didn't come out my mouth. So anyways, y'all, they didn't care for me anyway, y'all, like I said. So it was a fight to get the job back, and I was fighting for months on end, and eventually it led to them slowly starting to seem like they were opening the doors back to me getting my job back. And then the thing at the call center happened where they put me at the call center that was near the facility and in the same office area, or on the same compound where orientation took place. Those same set of offices was where the call center was. And if you've been keeping up with my videos, y'all will know what happened with the call center. You know, it's still just like what felt like unfair treatment. I was like, oh my God, it seemed like they were opening the door again, and then it was just again another weird thing. If y'all hear what happened with the call center. So then after that happened, I remember one day they sent gaslighting stuff with the technology, and I just went off in my head about some of the things that took place in the facility, what happened with the call center job. I was going off on the unfair treatment and whatever, right? And shortly after that, I noticed I got a schedule that was when I got my post back as a security officer at the facility, and I've been working there since for months. And they were hardcore hinting that I would get my job back in there as a corrections officer. But then it was just like this, like I said, bipolar thing where that's happening. But then when I leave, these bipolar bullying tactics being used. And so it's like I'm in this state of confusion. So something happened last night, y'all. And I'm like, see, that's to tell you that's what was going on, right? I'm going to talk about it in a minute, right? So anyway, they were doing those tactics. If you've been keeping up with my recent videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's where this video comes in, y'all. This video with the thumbnail that says career, right? So about 2 weeks ago, they did the same tactic where it was this, this thing where they're hinting that I'm going to get the job back. They do that all the time, like every morning hinting that I was going to get my job back. They even had me training security officers there because I was following all the rules by the book, trying to get my job back in the facility. So I was following all of the rules in the booth that the security officer has to follow. I was doing everything to a T, crossing my I's, dotting my T's, etc., to the point where they had me training other officers. So about 2 weeks ago, it was another one of these, what I call bipolar moments, because like I said, there were moments where it seemed like things were getting better and like they were hinting that I was going to get my job back in the facility. And then I leave and these bullying tactics are being utilized on me. And I know the program is program's connected. It's a gridlock system. So if you're getting bad treatment in one area and then good treatment in the other, it's all connected. It's all the same entity. So I'm like, are things okay? Here in the job, you're pretending, well, let me not say pretending, but you're insinuating I'm going to get my job back, but then I'm leaving and all these bullying tactics are being set up. I'm like, what is going on? So about 2 weeks ago, I remember, I was sitting there in the morning time and they were doing the thing again where they were doing background noise campaigns hinting that I was going to get my job back. If you check out the video, you'll know what I'm talking about, y'all. And if you've checked out these recent videos, some of the subliminal things they would do to hint I was going to get my job back as a corrections officer. So I remember this morning, they were really aggressively hinting that I would get the job back. And they even sent the word rookie into the technology. Like rookie meaning like cadet, like a hint that I'm good job rookie. Like I played against them on the pool game, I think it was, and they used the term rookie, something like that. And then they sent it in a movie I was watching too, rookie. So I just got this awkward look on my face because literally a few days prior, right, they were doing the same thing where they were hinting I was going to get the job back. And then I went to the grocery store and they had this big humiliating thing set up with this guy that works at the vegan health store that I like to shop at. So it was just like this kind of weird treatment. 1 minute it's good, 1 minute it's bad. Like you're hinting I'm going to get my job back, but then I'm leaving and I'm getting all this horrible treatment and you're insinuating I need to leave and flying the flyby when the light turns green at the stoplight and just weird stuff, y'all. So I remember this morning to going ham and calling me rookie subliminally and hinting I'm going to get my job back. And I remember I just sat there and I got awkward. And it wasn't that I don't want the job. I'm doing everything to show you I want the job back. So you know full well I want the job. It's not that. It's just I felt awkward and uncomfortable. You keep doing these bipolar things where you're hinting I'm getting the job. And then I'm getting horrible treatment. So I remember just sitting there and I just got this awkward look on my face. And I think the look was taken out of context. And I think the look, they thought that I didn't want the job. That was what I think they gathered from the look that I got on my face. And even if I did have that look, you see my actions. Actions speak louder than words. You see me doing everything possible to get my job back. How could a look supersede actions? And then furthermore, too, it should be that you're putting it together that, well, maybe it's the way we're treating her and the way we've treated her. So she wants the job, but it's just like the treatment. It's this kind of conflicting feeling that she's feeling. So, anyway, y'all, immediately, like, things kind of got weird. I felt the energy shift. I can always feel the energy shift when things shift because of a reaction I've had. I'm so used to dealing with it. It's like you live on eggshells. Your cortisol level is always super high. You're always overthinking your reactions because you get certain treatment for reactions that you have to being stared at like an experiment on camera. Everybody's staring at you like a freak show. It's a really, intense feeling to live like that 24/7. So anyway, I leave the facility now, right? And as soon as I get home, I get a call from the Department of Education all of a sudden. Now, mind you, I didn't know that they had already contacted me. 2 weeks prior to this moment, they had already sent me an email. And I didn't read the whole email. I talked about it in this video, y'all. Listen to this video. I'm not going to go into the details about what happened with the Department of Education and the email. Let me set up, y'all. Hold on. Oh, my back. Yeah, so 2 weeks prior, y'all, I had gotten an email from the Department of Education letting me know that they could not proceed with my application because my provisional certification had expired. It expired October of last year, y'all. Prior to that, though, I had applied to become a teacher with them. And there were a few things that took place that made me feel like I wasn't going to get the job. I talked about it in this video, y'all. So I stopped pursuing that. Again, it was another one of those I tried and I stopped pursuing it, right? And eventually my certification expired. So then I noticed, y'all, you hear the crazy weirdo by the gate again? He is creepy. And this man is a good few decades older than me, y'all. It's so scary. So when I said that, he went, and it's this fake laugh he's doing that. It's not a real laugh. Like, you could tell he's doing it to antagonize me. He's really creepy. And I think he's getting some sort of, if you look up the definition sadist and sadism, you'll see that it's somebody that derives pleasure from the humiliation or the hurt of someone else. That's what a sadist is. And they said oftentimes it can be sexual gratification. This is why I said I think he's a pervert. And it's the weird stuff he does too. Like, sometimes I'm putting on my underwear and he's making noise with his truck and stuff. I think it's some sort of perversion with him. It's creepy. And so I think he knows doing that, like these noises and stuff, is antagonizing. I can't get away from you. I just told you it's making me miserable that I'm stuck around dealing with what you do. And I can't get away from what you're doing. Why would you continue to do it and do it and do it and do it unless you're getting some sort of weird sadistic gratification from it? Whether it be sexual or not, you are getting some sort of sadistic gratification from it. And it's like this unadulterated access to me where I'm in this personal space. I'm trying to, do this video. And even if I'm not doing a video, I'm just trying to live in my room and be comfortable. And I have to deal with the intrusion of this person nonstop all day long. You know how that feels? Anyway, y'all, so after what happened last year with the Department of Education, I talked about it in this video. I just thought that wasn't happening anymore. So it wasn't something I was trying to pursue. It's something I wanted, but I can't go like bust down the door and say, hey, make me a teacher again. Let me teach. Like, what? That's crazy. As much as I think it's unfair if they decide to close the doors and it's not happening, it's not happening. I can't force them. I can't make them give me an opportunity. That's not how that works. So after that, I'm like a go-getter. As much as I'm depressed and all these things I'm dealing with, I'm like, okay, what's the next thing, Sharifa? What are you doing next? What are you doing next? What are you doing next? That's constantly what it is. What are you doing next? They keep saying this with the technology. She's so hard to beat. We can't destroy her. Because it's like constantly like the Energizer Bunny. What's next? What's next? What's next? Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. So anyway, whatever happened with the Department of Education happened last year. And I'm like, damn, they really didn't contact me. It's to the point where now the certification expired. They never reached out to me. And so now we're here in this year. And just 2 weeks ago, like I said, not 2 weeks ago, when they sent the initial email was about a month ago when I saw the email from them, but I didn't read it in its entirety. I just saw the first 2 lines and I was like, okay, they just didn't want to hire me, because the first 2 lines said, we can't proceed with your application due to your certification being expired. So I didn't read the rest. I was like, they knew my certification was expiring. I even announced it on camera multiple times. They saw me come down there to the office to try to speak with HR, and they didn't answer the door 2 times. If you listen to the video, you'll hear what happened last year, y'all. So I was like, okay, so it's just, the opportunity is no longer present. That's what I thought to myself. So when I saw the first 2 lines, I didn't even read the rest of the email. I was embarrassed. Everybody can hear my thoughts. Everybody's watching me. There are people that get gratification from bad things that are happening to me. So I flew out of the email, y'all. I flew out of that thing quick with the quickness, right? And I just closed the email up and I didn't read it in its entirety. And I didn't know that the whole email proceeded to tell me the steps necessary to get my certification to get recertified. Y'all, I'm tired. To get recertified and then to contact the office immediately. Comprehension is key, y'all. But when you're dealing with what I'm dealing with sometimes, so I didn't read the rest of the email. And they didn't try to call me either. So that was like a month prior or 2 weeks prior to me getting this call that happened here. But I believe this call happened because of what happened at the correction officer, at the security at the facility where I was a corrections officer. I believe this was connected to that. I believe they told them to call me on this morning. They even kind of hinted that was the case. They started chirping the birds loudly in the background. Remember, y'all, when I say chirping the birds, remember they're using a bunch of different technology and they use bird drones, insect drones, etc. Check out the links in the description box and comment section, y'all, to hear about this technology. They're called MAVs, or it's an acronym for micro air vehicles. So real military vehicles, military drones that look like real birds, look like real insects, and they're used to surveil you at all times. And with the birds, make noise campaigns, chirp, chirp, and if you're a target and you notice you hear a lot of bird chirping sounds following you, roosters, etc., you notice dragonflies, gnats, mosquitoes, etc., drones, you're gonna learn. Anyway, that's how they surveil you. Check out the links in the description box and comment section. Anyway, y'all, so the call came through from the Department of Education after, you hear the bird? After they had just sent the rookie thing at the post and I acted awkward about it, I had this kind of reserved look, whatever the look was that they didn't like or I didn't react the way they wanted me to react, whatever it was, right? I come home now and I see the phone call from the Department of Education. So I was like, immediately, the way my mind works, I'm always like, especially as a target, y'all, I'm always overthinking everything. I'm always analyzing. That's just my personality anyways. I'm an analytical thinker and I'm always analyzing things. I'm always overthinking things. But especially since becoming specifically, y'all, the noise campaigns in the background is messing with me and I haven't slept. I worked last night. I haven't slept. By the way, I worked yesterday too and I didn't sleep. And then I went to the gym and then they asked me to come in early to work and I didn't get to sleep. So I'm tired. My brain is mush right now, y'all. But anyway, as a target, I'm definitely always overthinking things. And that's my personality anyway. So I remembered immediately thinking, I know this is connected to that reaction I had at the job, because I remember things kind of got weird, the energy. As soon as I had that reaction to them calling me rookie, I remembered things kind of feeling like the energy shifted. And then when I left, I heard them doing the bird chirping sound. I was like, oh boy, God, another reaction they're going to punish me for. Then I come home and I see the call from the Department of Education. Now, I didn't even think about that email I had gotten 2 weeks ago. It wasn't until I got off the phone where I was like, nah, they definitely set that call up. And I was like, 'cause just 2 weeks ago, they were telling me they couldn't proceed with my application. And then when I went and I opened the email and I read the whole email, I saw that they were telling me what to do to get recertified and that I was supposed to contact the office immediately after getting recertified. But anyway, so I see the phone call and I pick up the phone, I answer the phone, and I'm having a conversation, and the lady was just telling me, hey, we're going to conduct interviews soon and we see that your certification is expired. Are you planning to work on it? Are you planning to get recertified? I said, yes. I said, I can if y'all want me to. She said, well, yes, if you want an interview, you need to get recertified. I said, okay. Of course I sound excited because I've been trying to get back into teaching for years. And I'm not sure about what's going on with the correction officer job. I'm getting this bipolar treatment. I know a lot of the people in there didn't care for me. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll take this opportunity. Of course I will. But in my head, I'm like, at the same time, this is odd that the call was coming through now after what just happened at the job. I was like, huh? Yeah, I thought it was really strange. So I remember as soon as I got off the phone, the birds started chirping and going ham and the mosquitoes started flying, diving by and stuff. And I said, I know y'all set that up. I said, it's obvious. I said, I know you're doing that because I had whatever reaction that I had to you calling me a rookie. I felt myself having a reaction and I said, it's just because I feel uncomfortable. I tried to explain that. I didn't make a video about it. I didn't make the video until they started to physically do things to me about what I felt was, whatever. When they started physically doing things to me was when I made a video about it. I just said whatever out my mouth. I know y'all are the reason why that call just happened. I said the reaction I had doesn't mean I don't want to work there. It's because of the way you treat me. So anyway, I go in the bathroom now a couple hours later to get ready to go to the gym. I notice I'm in the mirror. They're doing this antagonizing thing where they're flying the fly in my face. They never do that. Yes, they mess with my self-esteem and they send me horrible things with the technology and try to make me feel like low on myself. But I'm getting ready in the mirror in the bathroom. You're diving to fly by. You don't typically do that. I said, I know you're doing this because of what happened just now with the Department of Education. I said, how could y'all punish me for a reaction I had because y'all have this bipolar treatment, the weird way that you treat me? So that happened, but the coup de grace was when I went to work that night. So I went on post as a security officer. I do security there. They start using the energy weapon on me. I think there was some gang stalking set up in the gym too. Y'all check the video out. I can't remember. It was like 2 weeks ago, and so much stuff happens all the time. I can't keep up with every little thing. That's why I do videos, and document stuff. I can't keep up with everything. This is why I document stuff and I advocate for myself. So anyway, I get to work that night and it was the beam in my head with the energy weapon. I said, wait a minute. I said, y'all never do this. I've been working here for months doing security here. You have never used the energy weapon here at the job. You do it at my house sometimes. You never do it here at the job. I said, I know this is because of the Department of Education thing. They were actually beaming my head with the energy weapon. So that was why I actually sat there and I made a video. And I started talking about, that was where I made this video, the career video. And I started talking about the treatment that I got from them. The bipolar treatment where it's like it's seeming like I'm gonna get my job back, but then they're doing these bullying underhanded tactics to me. And so if I react in this kind of way where it's one of the moments where you're being nice to me and I have a reserved reaction, how could you punish me for that? So then I talked about the call I got from the Department of Education and predictive measures. Of course, that was predictable. Of course, you knew I would hop at that opportunity. How could you be upset and punish me for that and make it seem like I didn't want the job? So anyway, they were beaming my head with the energy weapon. And I made the video. I started talking about the whole thing and, why I felt like they were offended. I don't know. I just think it was this feeling that was there all the time. I think before I even got in the facility, though, I'm just being honest. And they were making noise with the rooster earlier when I was saying it. I feel like they think I didn't want the job because several of them had said that before, that they didn't think I want to work there. But they weren't specific about it. I think that's what they meant. I think they felt like I wanted to be a teacher and whatever, man. Whatever the feeling was. And I just didn't care for me anyway. Right? So it was just multiple things at once. So when I started to get physically assaulted with the energy weapon, that was where I made the video. I said, nah, man. I said, this is ridiculous. I said, really? I said, how could you punish me when you've been doing all these bipolar things? And now it seems like this opportunity here, even if you're the reason why the door opened, which actually I don't think so. Because like I said, 2 weeks prior, I had gotten the email. But I think they were the reason that they called that day, though. I definitely think so. You see them flying the fly? They were definitely the reason why they called that day, though. And so I'm like, okay, because it's all interconnected, I think they told them to call me that day when they called me, even though they had already reached out to me. I don't know that they would have ever actually called me had it not been for what happened this day. Maybe they would have, but that specific day when they called, it was due to that reaction I had to the rookie thing. And so it seems like I failed whatever test with the correction officer people. I don't know. Because they started beaming my head with the energy weapon that night at work. I was like, what the heck? Y'all never do this. I'm like, y'all never do this to me. So I made the video about it. So now, since then, they've kind of cooled off. They still off and on are doing stuff, but it's not as bad. They kind of cooled down a little bit. And so I've been dealing with the ongoing process of now trying to teach again. And then the whole interview experience happened, y'all, that I talked about in the whole interview experience happened, y'all, that I talked about in the last video, right? So anyways, check that video out if you want to hear what happened with the interview and the process of me still trying to become a teacher, right? So anyway, something weird happened last night at work, though. What led to me making this? There's a reason why I'm making this video. What they did this morning is why I'm making the video. But then I'm remembering what happened last night. Yeah, it was what they did to me this morning, y'all. That's what it is. It was what happened this morning, right? That's what it is. I'm so tired, y'all, because something, again, tied to this teaching thing happened this morning. And then it's like immediate punishment for it. Now I remember why I'm making the video. God damn, because something happened last night too, y'all, that I wasn't going to make a video about. But I'm just adding it in there. What happened this morning. But what happened this morning is why I'm making the video now. Thank God the memory came, y'all, because I'm so tired. I think I did sleep for a little bit. Just now I woke up. Now that I'm thinking about it. My brain is mush. Working this night shift, y'all, and not getting enough sleep. I think I slept for a little bit and I just woke up. That's why my brain is foggy. I thought I hadn't slept. I did for a little bit just now. Anyways, y'all, so yesterday they asked me to come in early. Oftentimes, if they have an opening there at the post, they asked me to come in. So they asked me to come in early, y'all. And so I came in. I probably look horrible right now, y'all. My lips are peeling. My face is greasy. I just feel horrible right now. Anyway, I hate when these moments happen because these are the moments where they come for my self-esteem like crazy. I like to have myself together, but this is just one of those moments, and I'm making a video looking a hot mess, but whatever. Anyways, y'all, so I forgot what I was gonna say. So they asked me to come in earlier yesterday. The night prior, when I was on shift, the supervisor asked me, is it okay, would you be able to come in earlier? You know, I work 12 a.m., y'all, to 8 a.m. She asked me to come in at 6 p.m., so I would have been working a whole extra 6 hours. I told her, okay, no problem. I had to think about it because I had just gotten paid and I had all these bills to pay and I had all these things to do. And remember, I'm trying to get my certification. So there's all these documents I have to turn in. I was trying to deal with, sorry to sound ghetto, y'all. Not to sound, that's an ignorant comment. I didn't even mean to, that's so offensive. I didn't mean to say ghetto. All kinds of people use food stamps and you're not ghetto just because you use it. You could have children and you just don't have assistance and you're doing the best you can and you need food stamps. It doesn't mean you're ghetto. I didn't mean to use that term. There's just this negative connotation when it comes to food stamps and this taboo. You know, people will sometimes, look down on you if you use food stamps. I don't care. I've been through so much, y'all. I don't care. Any type of assistance that I can get, I'm going to take it, and I don't care how you feel about it. I'm proud of myself for making it this far with all the things I've been through. So if I need to utilize food stamps, I'm going to do it. And I do it. Proudly too. But I'm not judging it. I don't feel like you're ghetto or low down because you're using food stamps. Sometimes it's not targeting. Sometimes it's life circumstances. Maybe you're the only parent taking care of your children, and this is how you get assistance. So it is what it is. That's what it's there for. We're supposed to use it, right? So anyway, I had to deal with my food stamps and whatever else I needed to deal with. And so I had a lot of stuff to do. So I was trying to think, can I come in? But I always tell them yes when they ask me to come in, even if it's last minute. I'll be in the gym mid-set and they're calling me, hey, can you come in right now? And I'm telling them, give me an hour, give me 2 hours. Let me just finish my workout. Anytime they call me, I'm basically, you could say, dropping everything and coming. Not right away. Like, as in, give me an hour or two, but I come in. So this time she asked me way ahead of time. But I had just gotten paid, like I said, and I had all these things I needed to deal with. So I thought about it for a while, and I said, I think I can do it. I said, I think I can make it in there for 6 o'clock. So I came in early. It was hard. I didn't get everything done. And then I had the same crazy neighbor I was talking about doing weird stuff. I hadn't rested. I was out all day trying to get stuff done. Didn't get everything done. And then I tried to fly home and get a little bit of rest yesterday before the shift. Was not able to get to sleep. And then the crazy neighbor started purposely cutting grass so that I couldn't sleep for the little bit of time I had left to sleep, knowing that I hadn't rested. Sadism. Anyway, so I started going off. I was really going off yesterday, y'all. Even in the gym yesterday, I had a reaction. They keep putting these people on top of me. It's this new thing now that they're putting dudes on top of me all of a sudden. They were doing that subtly, but not like how they were doing it in the old gym. I noticed I put this post on Facebook that got a lot of views and a lot of likes, which is not a big deal. Who cares? But it's just like this isolation tactic. And so they're constantly doing things to interfere with certain things that happen. And I notice now all of a sudden it's the tactic of putting the dudes on top of me again because what happened with Facebook. So there's this annoying dude they started putting on top of me again randomly. I noticed I've seen him the last 3 times I've been in the gym, and he just irks me so bad. It's not personal. It's tied to trauma and PTSD and what I felt like was unfair treatment from the old gym, and this thing that's following me that I don't care to deal with anymore. But it's like, I've been dealing with him, and his presence has been irking me. But it was exceptionally annoying yesterday. I hadn't rested, like I told you all. And then I knew I had to go into work earlier to work, and I hadn't rested. My period's coming, y'all. I told you all I have fibroids. So I get really bad periods. Heavy bleeding. Actually, I believe I'm anemic. Exhaustion all the time. So I hadn't rested as it is. And then I deal with exhaustion due to my fibroids, y'all. My period was coming. I PMS real bad. They know this about me. They've known this for years. I get really bad PMS. And typically when they get the real nasty reactions out of me, it's either that I'm having my period or it's very near. So I haven't rested. My period's coming. You're going to put this dude right on top of me. And they had him doing the most yesterday. He's like, I'm going by the machine to squat. He's in the mirror directly next to me doing these weird karate moves. And it was just irking me. So he was annoying me so bad. I hadn't been that annoyed aside from this man that I live next door to that I can't get away from. Aside from him, like the level of annoyance I was feeling was almost equal to what I feel to this neighbor, right? I was so annoyed. Typically, I don't react like that. Like, I'll be annoyed that the person is there and their presence is annoying me. but not like the way I was feeling yesterday, y'all. I couldn't even control it. I was having some nasty thoughts in my head because it was just so annoying to me. Anyway, I finished my workout and I got home and I couldn't sleep, and the neighbors doing the cut grass thing, so that I can't even, for the low hour that I had left to try to get some sort of sleep, I could not sleep, y'all. So I went in there without sleeping. I had to actually call because I'm like, they're not even stopping him. They see what he's doing. They're not stopping him. You know, you asked me to come in 6 hours early to work. You know I haven't rested. I actually called the supervisor and I said, hey, I'm going to have to come an hour later than I told you. I haven't rested. I need to try to sleep. Still didn't sleep. I could not sleep, y'all. I couldn't sleep. So I went in there with zero sleep. I took a little caffeine, green tea caffeine shot, and I took that in there with me to the job. So anyways, y'all, I worked the shift, right? And getting closer to my actual shift starting now. You know, there's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Not 6 o'clock. I got there at 6:45 p.m. So I got there 45 minutes later than I said I would be there. And I'm always on time, y'all, to the job. Even when they asked me to come in early, I'm on time. This was like one of the first times where I was like, nah, this is ridiculous what they're doing with the program. They know I haven't rested. You know my period's coming in. You're letting this man just cut grass and stop me from sleeping. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to come in late. I only came in 45 minutes later than I said I would. Anyway, y'all, so I see 7 o'clock come, 8 o'clock come. The guards start leaving, the day guards. They start leaving. 9 o'clock come. We're getting out to the later hours. It's getting closer to my actual true shift. My shift starts at 12 a.m., my typical shift. Around 10 o'clock or, something like that. I'm sitting there and I'm watching the show, right? And this creepy show, man, with it's called Him. If y'all have not heard about it, check it out with Marlon Wayans. It's a weird, creepy show. I couldn't get with it. It's this guy that's underneath. I don't know if you're familiar with Jordan Peele, the producer. He's the one that wrote the movie Us with Lupita Nyong'o and those people, with the tethered people and stuff. He comes with these. This is why I like his movies. I've always liked sci-fi movies, and I grew up watching sci-fi movies. He always comes with these weird, like, sci-fi movie concepts that are controversial, but something that could actually happen in real life. And he makes these interesting movies out of it, and so it's these really good movies. So I like a lot of his movies. But this movie, you could tell it wasn't him. Like, you could tell it was like a wannabe Jordan Peele. Like, and that's what it was. It was somebody that he took under his wing that made the movie. So they tried to make, like, a movie similar to his, where it has that feel of, like, this weird sci-fi concept, a concept that could really happen in real life, but still unrealistic. And then you made a movie from it. But it was just weird. I couldn't get with the movie. It wasn't like the kind of Jordan Peele where it's like interesting weird. It was just weird. I didn't like the movie. I couldn't get with it, right? So anyway, I said I would give it an opportunity again. I said I'll try to watch it again. So I remember I put it on and I'm trying to watch it. And then this scene happens in the movie where the girl said, with the guy, the main character. If you watch the movie, you'll see that there are two main characters. There's Marlon Wayans, and then there's this guy that he took under his wing, that he's training basically to take his place. He's like this big, revered football player, and he's training this guy under his wing, this guy that's really good, that has a lot of potential. And so he's supposed to be training this guy under his wing to take his place. But low-key, the plan was really it was weird. It was like he was trying to take the essence from this guy. Rather than training him, it was more so like he was trying to take the guy's essence so that he could keep his position. And it was almost like they ended up warring against each other for this position, right? It was this weird-ass movie. It was weird and creepy. Anyway, so there was this part in the movie where one of the girls that was working for the main guy, the football guy, she took the guy that was under his wing to a party, right? And it was some weird shit. They're doing some weird ritual shit in the movie. It was so weird. And they're at the party and, whatever's going on. And he starts getting sick. It's like they gave him some weird thing to drink and he's throwing up and puking. And he get real sick, and he starts throwing up diamonds and jewels. It was a weird movie, y'all. You have to watch it to really understand, right? But then after he's throwing up and stuff, the girl starts screaming at him, "We don't want you here! We don't want you! We don't want you! We don't want you!" Right? And then after she screams that at him, he passes out. And then when he wakes up, her hair is combed and she's looking normal again instead of looking like a crazy bat. She's looking normal again. And she said, "I hope you don't take what happened last night personally. We really don't want to lose you." And so after she did, I said, damn. I said, wait a minute. I said, this is similar to what's happening to me with the correction officer job, They're doing all these horrible ass stuff to me. And then the next minute, it's like this bipolar thing where, come, we want you. Come on, come work for us. You know, it's kind of weird. I'm not trying to, that's literally what's been happening, y'all. Right? So after I thought that in my head, I made the connection. I said, damn, that's kind of what happens to me. Then this officer is leaving. I didn't even know she was still in there because it's like most of the day officers had left. They typically leave around 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You don't usually have stragglers all the way to 10 o'clock leaving up out of there. So she comes driving through the gate and I'm opening the gate. She beeps me. She never beeps me. This is one of the officers that never beeps me. She never beeps me. And she's sisters with one of the dudes that's like almost best friends with the guy from the gym. Remember I told y'all that there's a connectivity between the guy from the gym and these officers, right? She is sisters with the brother of her brother beeps me more than she beeps me. Her brother will come through and I know he don't care for me. I know he's good friends with that dude. They're like real buddy. When I used to work out in the gym, he used to be there with that dude and they used to be punging, I don't want to say melee, but like talking and like homies. They're like real homies. Even both wear glasses and stuff. They look around the same age. They're real good. They're real tight, right? And so I used to work out around the two of them before things got really bad. So they're real close. So recently I've been seeing some off-cap stuff. I've gotten so frustrated with dealing with the unfair stuff over the last 2 years, specifically these last 5 months, where they've been attacking my self-esteem and throwing out scandals about sex tapes and just horrible treatment due to this thing that was out of my control that happened with this man's girlfriend. So I finally recently, like I wasn't saying the last week, started dissing his girlfriend and saying what I think the issue really is. I never have dissed a girl. She dissed me first. If you listen to that video from 5 months ago when the whole, look at them trying to shut me up now. From 5 months ago when the whole weird thing started, the thing's been going on since 2024 when I dissed the man. It's been up since then. But recently, since the last 5 months where things have kind of amped up, when I had the interaction with his girlfriend that didn't go the way they wanted it to or whatever, she dissed me. I took a picture, she saw it in her eyes, started doing this weird blinking thing. And then the girl started dissing me. She was just calling me sweetheart a couple seconds prior. I didn't diss her. I just went in there and started acting cocky and squatting in this cocky way. I did not diss the girl. It took months for me to insult her, but after they started doing what they've been doing recently and coming for my self-esteem and attack after attack, and I know it's tied to that thing, I finally just said, I know what this is about. I started dissing the girl last week, finally. So anyway, I know he don't care for me, right? Because that's his buddy, and they're very subjective when it comes to these things. They're very subjective. That is his buddy. Anyway, so this girl is like his sister. I don't know if they're twins or what, but they look the same. They look the same age. They look the same. I want to think they're fraternal twins. I don't know, though. It could just be siblings. You know how siblings are. Family is family. If you have the same parents, you do resemble your sibling. That's how that works. I don't know if they're twins or if they just resemble, but they look a lot alike, right? And they look like they're around the same age. So anyway, she's another one that I trained under, and it's not like she was terrible to me. I could tell she didn't care for me at all. And another one that seemed annoyed with me too. And she even hinted the word, about being a bitch when I was training under her. She did. And there was this interaction with this older inmate in there and stuff that happened, and she was saying something about the word bitch. And so yeah, I think she thinks I'm a bitch. She's like directly connected with the dude from the gym. So anyway, after the thing happens on the screen where she's like, we don't want you. And then the next day, then she's like, I hope, her hair's fixed. She's like, I hope you didn't take offense to what happened last night. She's like, we don't want to lose you. I was like, oh my God, this is what's happening with the correction officer job. And they keep gaslighting me about my reactions when this is the treatment I'm getting. And she comes driving to the gate. I didn't even know she was still in there at that hour of the night. I thought they had all left at that point. She comes driving through the gate and she beeps me. She never beeps me. Never. I'm very observant. I observe all the officers and how they treat me and how they move with me. And I know the faces. I know the cars. I know who does what. She never, this was out of character for her. She does not beat me. She doesn't beat me. This was the first time she beat me. So I didn't even wave back. I remember just, like, I knew it was because of what I just played on the screen. I know you're basically twins with the dude's best friend. So I know how you feel about me. So, anyway, I was like, oh my God. I remember just thinking to myself, like, but I didn't say anything. I played it off and she was like, okay, whatever. I didn't care at that point. In my head, I'm like, hopefully they'll let me become a teacher and I can teach again. That's more of an independent role. I work with my students. Of course, you still work collaboratively with coworkers. You work with your department. You have conversations with your department. You have meetings. You have to talk about and discuss lesson plans so that y'all can be on the same page. So it is still somewhat of a collaborative job, but it's a much more independent role when you teach. So in my head, I'm just like, well, hopefully things work out and I can become a teacher. I'm like, things were whatever they feel, however they feel about me. I was like, hopefully things work out and I can become a teacher, but hopefully they at least let me keep my post here as a security officer. That's all I keep hoping. Just let me keep my post here as a security officer. That's all I keep hoping, right? So anyway, she leave up out of there, right? She left. So then, the morning time comes, and I remember I was filling out the book. It was like, I think 7:00. This was what led to me making this video, y'all. Why I'm telling you, I think a large part of the treatment I got in there was the teaching thing. I think that's a large part of it. I think Anyway, so I'm filling out my logs, and this is part of the subliminal thing they'll do when they're hinting I'm gonna get my job back. I wrote the log. I said, I conducted a check at, and I said the name of the facility. Upon completion, everything was secured, right? That's how every log looks unless something takes place that you have to document. When I wrote the name of the facility, they started making noises with the bird. That's one of the subliminal things they'll do to hint that I'm going to get my job back or that I'm going to keep my job there, whatever. If they're trying to be antagonizing, when I'm signing out, they'll make noises. Like when I write that I'm accounting for, and I'll say the name of the security officer logbook, then they'll make noises, like trying to hint that I'm going to remain a security officer. So these are the weird tactics that I know sound strange, y'all. If you're a target, you have specific things that they do with you. You know what I'm talking about, right? So this was one of those moments where they were, like randomly this morning, because they know at this point now I've been pursuing the teaching thing. I thought that was just kind of what it was, this is how things played out. I was just like, okay, right? So anyway, they just randomly started making noise for the BOC thing. So in my head, I wasn't thinking that they were making the noise like I'm going to become a corrections officer. In my head, I thought they were saying that I have a secure post here as a security officer. That's what I thought it meant. I wasn't taking it as you saying I'm coming there as a corrections officer. But still, I got awkward. I keep asking them, please stop doing these weird tactics. Just be quiet and let me just work. Because it's causing these weird reactions, and I feel like you're punishing me for the reactions I'm having. So anyway, they made the noise and I got awkward. I just knew what happened the last time, right? And so I got awkward, and the more I tried to control a reaction, the worse it is. And I keep trying to explain this is the same thing that happens with white people. Because they've sensitized me to white people and I've shared offensive stuff about white people, when I'm watching movies and stuff with white people on the screen, I wouldn't be acting like I've watched them on the screen my whole life. Some of the best actors are white. But because I'm being watched on camera and they do all the weird stuff that they do, it's like I'm doing these weird faces and I can't control my reaction. It's because you're watching me. Even in person, I'm trying to have a conversation that's weird. It's hard, man. PTSD and trauma. I'm being watched on camera, mainly. Being watched on camera and knowing you're being watched and observed. And traumatized because This is so annoying. Right? Anyways, y'all, before I finish saying what I was saying in the last clip, I got interrupted again, y'all. The same person keeps interrupting me this morning. I don't know what the problem is. But also what was annoying me with the guy in the gym yesterday, it wasn't just that I noticed that all of a sudden since the post on Facebook, they've been doing the tactic that they were doing in the old gym of putting dudes on top of me. But like I said, specifically with this gang stalker, I noticed I've seen him the last 3 times. So it's like they're trying to make him a main staple in my workout routine now. And I've come at different times and seen his annoying face. And the only reason I'm saying annoying face is because of the tactics he's using. And I know he's getting paid to do what he's doing. And I know this is tied to what happened with this man in the old gym. But what annoyed me so bad about him yesterday, too, it wasn't just that my period's coming and I hadn't rested. It was also that before I saw him, I saw another dude from the old gym. They're actually slowly but surely putting dudes from the old gym on top of me. There's been about 3 of them that they've done that with now. This is a whole new gym. I'm going at a whole different time, y'all. They're holding on to this situation with this man so tight that they're actually putting his friends one by one on top of me slowly but surely in the new gym. So I look and I see the man from the gym. I said, that's the man's good friend. I said, wait, you're using him here now too? I said, do they think I'm stupid? They think I'm not going to remember? They know I remember faces. They know me. They think I'm not going to recognize. They knew I would recognize him. I said, I know him. He's from the old gym. I said, another one? So that's why I started getting annoyed, y'all. I really started getting annoyed. I started doing my Bulgarian split squats. I started to notice everything. I noticed this dude sitting on one of the machines directly across from me, parallel to me, while I'm doing my Bulgarian split squats, and he's just sitting there not doing reps, staring in his phone. So I'm getting another dude they're putting on top of me now to make me feel uncomfortable. So I remember taking the shades off as a dig at them, because I remember what happened when I took the shades off and I took the picture 5 months ago, the interaction that happened with the man's girlfriend. So I purposely took the shades off and started acting cocky and doing the Bulgarians in this cocky way. And so then I remembered I finished doing that, right? And then I went over to the rack to do my squats. And that was where they put this new dude on top of me that they've been using the last 3 times. And all of a sudden he's doing these weird karate moves in the mirror. And I'm like, it was just so ew and annoying to me. And so I started saying all these mean things in my head. I haven't had that type of reaction in a while. They really worked overtime to get that one. They knew I hadn't rested. They know my period's coming. And then on top of things, right before I saw him, I saw one of the guys from the old gym. So it's all very triggering for me, and I know what I've been dealing with for the last 2 years, but specifically the last few months, the unfair treatment, the horrible stuff. So I started to go ham on the dude. I went ham. I said, he ain't even my type. Y'all think I like anything that's red? I said, this ain't it. I think I said his head was big or something, because he does have this big head. He's not a bad looking guy, but he really isn't my type. I'm not vain, y'all. And especially these days with what I've been through. It's more so how you make me feel in your personality. Of course, I have to be attracted to you, but you don't have to be some fine thing. But they keep putting dudes that they think would be my type, and it's dudes that I wouldn't even look twice at. Maybe if you had a good personality and you were a good person, I might have been interested. But you're doing annoying tactics. I know you're hired. And then you look annoying too. Like he had this big head and they're doing these annoying moves in the mirror, and I was just in a bad mood. I was in a very bad mood. And then I had just seen another one of the dudes from the old gym. I'm like, oh my God, am I ever going to escape this situation with this man that I wasn't even in a relationship with? I'm like, Jesus Christ. Especially when you hear the circumstances that he started with me first, randomly. I was working out with him for a whole 2 years. Not 2 years, a whole year and change. He hadn't done anything like that, And then randomly at the end of the year, all this weird stuff. And so then I finally have a reaction. He gets embarrassed. He leaves or whatever. It's up from there. I'm getting tortured for 2 weeks straight, for 2 years straight. Anyways, y'all, my head hurts. I just wanted to go into the details about it, right? So anyway, fast forward back to this morning, what happened this morning and what I was talking about at the end of the last clip. So they do the noise thing like chirp, chirp with the birds when I wrote the name of the facility in that log as I was doing my logs. So I got awkward and I sat there and I was like, oh my God. I said, you see, I hate when y'all do this. I thought the thought in my head. I said, because I have these reactions where I get awkward and then, I don't want to get punished for acting awkward. I said, I feel awkward. So I remember sitting there and I was trying to fight sleep. I was so tired. I hadn't rested before I got on shift. And I remember I worked a whole extra 6 hours to my 8-hour shift. So I remember just sitting there, and anytime I get sleepy, I've talked about this before, I sometimes will have I think it's V2K, y'all. I'm not sure if it's V2K or nano. This was V2K for sure. They've used V2K on me before, and then it's been sometimes where I feel like it's some weird thing with the technology, like nano or something, where I'm sitting there and I'm feeling sleepy and I start hearing thoughts that aren't my own. Check out the video from Dr. Phil V, y'all, in the description box and comment section, how this technology works. It's some high science shit. It's scary when they put this inside you. But it happens to me often. When I get sleepy, I'll start hearing thoughts in my head that I didn't think. And I'm like, well, I didn't think that. I'm like, what? Right? It's this weird, creepy thing. It happens to me sometimes. But then sometimes I believe it's literally technological manipulation, V2K, like the pushing, or thought manipulation where they push a thought in your head. So after they did the thing where they, made the birds chirp after I did my log and I wrote the name of the facility and I got awkward. I even thought in my head, oh my God, look, the awkward thing is happening now. I'm sitting there trying to stay up and I just hear this thought, I'm too busy thinking about my new position. That's what I heard in my head. I heard in my head, I'm too busy here thinking about my new position. So I remember sitting up and saying, what? Because first of all, I'm not even sure if I'm getting the position. With everything that happens with the targeting and the programming and what I've been dealing with, until they say, hey, you're hired, you got the job, I'm not getting my hopes up. So anyways, I would never think that. And then also too, I'm sitting here at the facility, I would like to at least keep my post as a security officer. I know there's some sort of sensitivity with that topic specifically. I know what happened in the first place 2 weeks ago. Why the hell would I think that? That was dumb. So I heard I'm too busy thinking about my new position. So I remember sitting up and saying, I didn't think that. And then I heard them going, chirp, chirp. I said, y'all did that. I said, y'all did that. I said, y'all just pushed that thought in my head. I said, I didn't think that. I heard them going, chirp, 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 with the birds. I was like, okay. So anyway, so I'm really alert now. I'm tweaked out that just took place. I'm sitting up alert now, right? So then it gets time for me to go sit in the chair. Remember I told you on prior videos, towards the end of the shift is when all the cars really start coming in the morning. Towards the end of my shift, They're coming in for the day, right? And I sit up and I have to go in the high chair now. Not the chair that's at the desk, but the chair that's by the window so I can see them coming in and open the gate as they come so they don't have to beat me. So I go to sit in the high chair, and while I'm sitting in the high chair, they're doing all these abusive tactics. I'm watching these different shows, and, you know, they're flying by for horrible stuff as the person's getting killed in the show. They're flying to fly by. I'm like, what the heck? I said, are they really doing this? And I still wasn't putting them, so my brain's so tired and foggy, I still wasn't putting it together that it was due to what happened just now in the chair, you know, at the desk with the teaching thing. I didn't put it together, the new position thing. I didn't put it together. I'm just like, oh my God, it's another one of these mornings where they're doing the bipolar activity. And I remembered what happened last night with the dude from the gym's best friend's sister. So I was just like, right? So I'm just sitting there dealing with whatever. And then this guy comes through the gate, right? And he's in this unmarked vehicle. He's wearing random clothes. He's not wearing corrections officer clothes. I don't know him from a can of paint. I've never seen his face before. So how am I supposed to know who you are? I'm supposed to just have telepathy and know, you're coming to the parking lot to drop something off to one of the officers. I'm doing my job. I just trained a series of officers where I was showing them the guidelines on the wall. And one of the guidelines is that you have to check everyone's ID. Everyone who comes to the facility, unless you know them and they're a worker, you have to ID them. Not only that, you're supposed to ask them if they have drugs in the vehicle, and you're also supposed to ask them if they have weapons in the vehicle, because it's a secure facility. It's a jail. I can't just let anybody off the street drive in. You know, these people in the jail, some of them have enemies and stuff. That could actually create a dangerous situation. I can't just let anybody just fly through the gate, and I don't know you. And then if I do that, and I say, he probably just knows somebody in here, it's okay. Then you hear I wasn't doing my job, and they use that as an excuse to punish me. You think I'm stupid? So I open the gate, I see him flying through the gate, right? So I'm like, who's this? He's looking at me like I'm supposed to know who he is. He do a nod and he's flying through. So I said, hey. I said, wait. His window was cracked. I said, wait. And I know he knows how the procedures works, because I know his woman. I don't know her personally. I know she's been there for a while. I know he knows how the procedures work. Even if you're not somebody that comes through the gates often, I know you know how it works. And everybody's watching me on camera. So I know you have to have seen how this operation works. I know you know how this works. He's flying through the gate like I'm supposed to just have telepathy and say, he knows one of the officers in here, so let me just let him in. So I said, hey. I said, where you going? He said, look in the parking lot, man. I go into my woman, look in the parking lot, man. So I look and I see one of the officers is by her car, and she waved at me like it's okay. She's actually one of the ones that was nicer to me. I've never worked with her during the daytime. She's a night shift officer, but I've had a couple encounters with her when I came in the morning, when I used to work as a corrections officer and I was coming in under an officer, and that officer was relieving her from the night shift. I had a conversation with her, like one or two, where she introduced herself, and she seems cool. I remember I was even asking her if she was related to one of the day officers that has the same last name as her. And she's like, no relation. She said in a joking way. I could tell she was joking, right? But she seems like a cool person, right? I didn't actually have any nasty, out of all of them, she's one of the ones I did not have a bad experience with. But her boyfriend was doing strippiness. And no disrespect, he was doing strippiness. So he's, like, look in the parking lot, no man, look, I go into my woman. I'm like, I look up and I see her and she waves at me and I said, okay, go ahead. But in my head, I'm like, you think I'm supposed to just know that? You don't know how this works? But I wasn't like flipping out or being nasty to her. I was just like, okay, whatever, right? When I saw her and I saw she wave at me, I said, okay, cool. I just let him go ahead, right? I'm supposed to stop him and ask him if he has drugs or weapons and check his ID. But I'm not anal like that. Yes, I am a stickler for the rules, especially with my experience, where unfair things happen to me. So I'm very strict, and I'm already that type of personality anyway. I am a stickler for the rules, but not that. I'm not an anal bitch, right? If you're going right there to the parking lot, I'll let you come in and come out. But tell me something. You think I could just let you speed in regular clothes and I'm gonna I have telepathy. I know you're going to the parking lot to one of the corrections officers, huh? So anyway, so when I see her, right, and she waved at me, I said, okay, and I let him go ahead. Then when he's leaving, he revving through the gate like I did something wrong, like I did something to offend him. I'm like, huh? So anyways, but anyway, I didn't have an attitude about it, right? I didn't go off on him or anything. I'm dealing with so much stuff. I did not go off. It's not like I started immediately thinking nasty stuff. But immediately they start doing stuff with the birds, like these mean things with the birds, like I had done something wrong. As soon as I'm watching the show, there was a point in the show, like right after the thing happened, where the person said, I can't stand you, da-da-da-da. And they landed the fly on the board where I fill out the information for the cars coming through the gate. They landed the fly there. And that was where they started really just flying the fly in my face and biting me. And I said, are y'all doing this because of what happened with this guy that just came to the gate just now? They start chirping the bird. I said, really? I said, you're doing this because somebody in unmarked clothes that I don't know from anywhere, from off the street, came to drive through the gate, and I'm doing my job and stopping and IDing them like I'm supposed to do. And you're making noise for that? I said, are you serious? And I wasn't putting it together again that they were doing the weird tactic because of what had happened at the desk with the BOC, with the name of the facility and the reaction I had, and then the weird thought that they put in my head about, I'm excited about my new position. I wasn't putting it together, I'm here just on edge because I'm so used to the weird treatment with them. I'm thinking they're punishing me for doing my job. I was like, huh? And then if I let him drive in willy-nilly off the street in the regular clothes with the face that I don't recognize, and oh my, I'm gonna assume he knows somebody in here. And then he come in with a gun because somebody in the jail is in there that he's coming after. Yeah, she was at the gate and she let him through it. So anyways, y'all, I was like, huh? So I was like, why are they really doing this? I'm just sitting there trying to figure out why they do. I said, this is where I started going off about the situation, because I wasn't going to go off. Once I saw it was her, I kind of like her. She seems cool. I wasn't going to go off, even though what he did was fly, I wasn't about to go off about it. It was what they started doing after. Like I had done something wrong that made me start flipping off about the situation. So then after I started flipping off, I know they realized they were dead wrong and they were doing stupidness. Then I see something with the technology while I'm scrolling through my news feed that said something about riddle about a teacher. It said riddle about a teacher. Solve the riddle about a teacher. How many T's are in the word that? And so in my head I was like, well, it's a riddle. They're asking, even though there were T's in the question, the T in the word that, the T's in the word that are the T's that they're asking about. They're asking how many T's are in the word that. I forgot what the question was. It was some stupid riddle about a teacher, though. And so it was like a eureka moment, like an epiphany. I was like, wait a minute. I said, is that why they're doing this to me? Because what happened just now at the desk a little while ago, before that guy came through the gate, where I wrote the name of, you hear the rooster going off, where I wrote the name of the facility on the paper and they did the chirping thing and I had the awkward reaction and then they did thought manipulation and put the thought in my head about, I'm just thinking about my new position. I said, wait a minute, is this why they're doing what they're doing? They start chirping the birds and going ham, and then I heard Ref Campaign. It's like they have some big truck in the area that does Ref Campaign on me in the mornings. I heard the big truck doing Ref Campaign, and then two facility vehicles left out of the facility. Now, they were already planning to leave and they were doing stuff, obviously, in there. They had something going on this morning. But as soon as I said that, the two facility vehicles drove through the gate. So I'm like, really? They're punishing me for that? Are you kidding me? Because I knew it didn't make sense them punishing me for what the guy did. I know they knew I was right. I knew it couldn't be that. So I start putting it together. I was like, what the heck? So I was just like, this is crazy weird stuff. It's like the same weird stuff. It's like, you don't want me, right? You don't want me in there. You treat me like crap. But then you don't want me to teach? You don't want me. What do you want from me? So anyways, y'all. So I didn't leave the place now, right? And I go to the store, I'm doing grocery store shopping and stuff. I'm noticing gang stalking activity inside the grocery store. I'm cognizant of my surroundings. I see everything because they're constantly throwing gang stalkers on top of me. So even when you think I didn't see you, I saw you. So I'm wearing the big black shades. I walk into the building. I look at my reflection in the door as I'm going into the store, and I see this girl coming in behind me with these short box braids and an orange floral dress. I could tell you to a T what she was wearing, an orange floral dress with orange and white, and she had box braids. You would never know I saw her. I saw her whole profile in the glasses I was going through the door. And I saw her doing this, pinching her nose. I thought in my head, gang stalker. I didn't think it for her to hear my thought, but the feeling, I knew she was a gang stalker. She heads over to the produce. They know when I get in the store, that's the main area I hit because I'm eating healthier now. I was going to go over there and get mint and basil. I chose not to when I saw her heading over there. I also had planned to get a sandwich because today is my Sabbath and we don't really cook today. So I wanted to get some food because sometimes the food prepared in the house isn't enough. And as y'all know, I work out, I'm trying to build muscle. So I went to the sandwich area. I ordered a sandwich. It took a while. I was standing there for a good 30 minutes waiting for a sandwich. It doesn't take that long to shop if you're not ordering something. How the hell was she still in the store? She didn't even have many items to the point where you were ready to leave and be at the cashier when I'm at the cashier. Hired gang stalker. So I get onto the line now and I'm paying for my stuff. And the cashier was nice to me. She's on the line with a cashier that's done directed convo before. I don't know if this girl is the queen of cashier gang stalking. But every time I go in that store, she's the one doing gang stalking stuff. They've designated her as queen of the gang stalking in that specific store. The last time I went in there, the gang stalking directed convo she was doing was more friendly. You know, it's more so like hinting to me that this is about bearing false witness, which it's redundant. I get it now. And at this point, you know that I get it. So why am I still being punished? I'm not saying that towards her. I'm just saying that towards the program. But anyway, it was more friendly, the energy from her. So I felt, I didn't feel any negative feeling towards her. And she looks younger too. She looks like a younger female, like early 20s or whatever. I didn't feel any negative feeling towards her. I actually thought it was like a positive interaction. This time now, I didn't go on her line. I went on the other cashier's line. The girl was nice to me. She wasn't doing any gang stalking stuff. Coincidentally, right as I go on that line, the girl that followed me in the store with the orange floral dress, I saw you. She gets on the line now, same time as me on the girls' line, though, that was doing the directed convo last time. And she barely has any items. So I'm like, what took her so long in the store? And I was standing there waiting for a whole sandwich. That's why I'm leaving now. What took you so long in the store other than they told you to come in here and do this? How much did you get paid? Anyway, so she starts having a conversation with the cashier, and I didn't even hear what they were saying. I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't until they started purposely saying whatever they were saying super hard for me to hear. Because I was two cashiers down. I wasn't hearing what the hell they were talking about. They start saying something about new money. Super hard. New money smells like shit. New money smells like shit. And oh yeah. And she's like, yeah. And she's then with some older man. And they're cackling and having this conversation with the girl about new money smelling like shit. Now, remember I told you the thought that they put in my head when I was sitting at the desk was, I'm too busy thinking about my new position. I didn't think that thought. That was thought projection. And I even said I didn't think it. And you had them confirming it with the rooster. I said, I didn't think that. I said, y'all put that in my head. And they were chirping the bird and everything. So now they set up this mean bullying thing when I go to the store. But new money smells like shit. And the girl's like, cackling or whatever, gang stalking. It was so annoying to me, right? Because it's like, I know you're a gang stalker. I saw you follow me in the store pinching your nose. You didn't know I saw you. I saw you. I see everything. It was just so annoying to me. Like everything irks me. When you're dealing with this type of stuff, everything is annoying. Especially when I know it's because of some unfair stuff. I'm like, what? The whole morning was just weird and unfair. It's just like a continuation of what's been happening, really. So anyway, she going ham, man. Like, they just, no, my saying it super hard. That's what made me hone in on what they were saying, because they were talking and cackling before I didn't care what they were talking about. It wasn't until they started saying it super hard for me to hear. New money smells like shit. New money smells like shit. I'm like, huh? I'm like, okay. I remember leaving just shaking my head like, this is just weird. I cannot deal with this. And also, too, when I went to the grocery store yesterday, I went in the store and one of the dudes from the old gym, an older man with braids. I told you he's in the phone store whenever they're messing with my phone and doing weird stuff with my phone. Gang stalking stuff with my phone. He's in there. He works in there. He's walking, he had his cornrows, right? He's walking up to the cash register right as I'm walking in the store. It's like they're putting me through hell over this man. I was never in a relationship with him. I don't care. How many times, I don't know, do I need to learn a different language to say I don't care? When is it going to stop? Is it ever going to stop? Is the targeting ever going to stop? So anyway, it's like, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent about him, y'all, because a lot of this that's happening here with this job, too, is tied to him, too, like I said. It's not just the teaching thing, and it's not just the offensive things I said. It's also tied to him. So anyway, it's a nightmare, man. So after that happened this morning, I was just like, what the heck? I still wasn't sure if I was going to make a video, I still hadn't thought in my head or processed the thought that I'm going to make a video about the weird stuff that happened this morning. It wasn't until I got close to my neighborhood where they started flying the flyby like I need to go home. And I saw the road was blocked up and I said, oh boy, look, a blockage. And the block was there from before. When I was heading from work to the store, I saw it. But I forgot that it was happening in this neighborhood, so I had to cut through the neighborhood. I said, oh boy, I forgot they had this road blocked up. I see the bird dive down, like they're hinting they're going to block something up. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, no, I'm going to make a video about this. This is ridiculous. Oh yeah, and I also stopped at McDonald's. McDonald's locked. The door's locked. The door is never locked. You kept seeing people come up trying to get inside. You could tell that the door is normally unlocked. The door is locked. I'm like, what is going on? So I said I was going to make a video about this and document this, y'all. It's just like crazy stuff still happening. Right as I got home, you heard me say this at the beginning of the video. Oh, they sent me a schedule, so I don't want to, you know, they sent me a schedule right before I made the video. I think maybe to appease me. I don't know. I don't want to say that and then like mess things up for myself. I'm grateful that I still have the post because this is my biggest fear, that they pull the post from me. Like, I finally have stable income. I'm grateful to still have the post. I saw they immediately sent me the schedule. Like, I have another full week there. I told y'all every week it's like a triumph when I see they gave me another week there and I have stable hours. So I was like, oh my God, but I still want to make this video. This is really crazy stuff. I want to talk about it. So anyways, y'all, that's it. I just want to document more like crazy activity with this, with the targeting and with jobs and gang stalking and unfair treatment, man. All right, I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace out. Another memory just popped in my head, y'all. I think I talked about this already. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Last year when I thought I was going to be teaching, when the person in my close circle came to me, if you check out that video that has the thumbnail that says career, you'll hear me talking about what happened with the Department of Education last year, where the person in my close circle came to me and told me to fill out my application. She spoke to someone in HR and they need teachers. I went to the grocery store, and then one of the people that works in the facility where I was a corrections officer came in the store and just like walked up to me and started making conversation with me and insinuating that they need workers in there. So it was like they saw that I was going to teach again. And then it's like they were planning to give me my job back, but it was like this extended punishment or something. And so then I don't want to say weird. I'm not trying to use the word weird, but I'm just saying it seems like they don't care for me. Like, they don't want me in there, but it's like they don't want me to teach either. I don't understand. I'm confused. I'm plumb confused. Anyway, y'all, that's it. All right. I just remembered that happened too last year. Like, I was in the store, I remember, and one of the workers from the facility came in and started making conversation with me and, you know, insinuating that they need workers in there when they knew I was about to apply to become a teacher. So it's just like this confusing thing, but you don't want me in there. We don't want you. Like, what? Anyway, all right. Okay, y'all. All right, peace out. Yeah, also more documentation. I haven't posted this video yet, so I am going to add this to the video. So obviously, if you're hearing this, you're at the end of the video that you just listened to, right? With me talking about what's been happening with the job situation, right? It's 2:15 a.m. in the morning. I made this video earlier, right? I haven't posted it on my YouTube yet. I'm still trying to put the clips together. Do you know, as soon as I opened my eyes, I didn't even put this video to play, they were hitting my head with the direct energy weapon. So I made a comment about it. I said, I can't believe they're hitting me with the direct energy weapon and actually physically torturing me as soon as I opened my eyes. So now I'm actually playing the video. I came into the video and started playing it. They've turned up the direct energy weapon in my ears. But they were already doing it as soon as I opened my eyes. So still being physically assaulted. So I'm adding this to the video.